We'll call this meeting to order of the Roswell City Council on October 13th, 2022. So we will have the roll call, and then, assuming there'll be a quorum, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Foster. If that's all right, and a prayer by Mr. Savino. Would you give us a prayer this morning, or a silent prayer? That'd be fine? Okay. And thank Councilman Savino, Savino Sanchez, that's good. Okay. So if the clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Arnold? Present. Counselor Halverson?
Present.
Halverson or Helderman?
Halverson.
I'm here.
So it's alphabetical.
Counselor Sanchez? Counselor Corn? Counselor Corn? Counselor Moore?
Did you say Councilor Moore? Here.
Counselor Hildebrand?
Present.
Counselor Perry?
Present.
Counselor Best?
Here.
Counselor Foster?
Present.
Counselor Opesa?
Here.
Mayor Jennings?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So now we will have a pledge by Councilman Foster and a moment of silent prayer by Reverend Councilman Savino Sanchez.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Next, we will have the approval of the agenda. We believe we have a few changes to make. If we could, Councilman Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as given here, that to include that item number 6 on the consent agenda from the airport leases, which would authorize Hvac Aerospace to enter into an interim lease for bunkers 1133 and 1137, to be pulled off of consent and to be placed on the regular agenda under now new item number 18A. The rest of consent will be as presented there, to include also the public hearing of the zoning case for the cannabis. And one other correction on item number 28, we are not approving the new Gen Strategies and Solutions Solid Waste Cost of Service Study. We are accepting the new Gen Strategies and Solutions Solid Waste Cost of Study Service. Everything else as presented.
We have a motion by Councilman Perry and a second by Councilman Foster. Is there any further discussion? All those, your voice vote all right? So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By unanimous vote, we have approved the agenda. And next we have to approve we would have a motion, we're going to have a motion by Councilman Perry to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda to include the minutes of the August 29, the remaining airport lease, and then resolutions as followed there as given.
Do we have a motion by Councilman Perry? Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilman Foster. Is there any discussion? Councilman Orpesa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the record, since we're going to this process now, and I asked this before, is there anybody that had signed up to discuss items on the agenda, on the consent agenda before we take the vote? And I believe the answer is no. Okay, thank you.
Is there any answers? Anybody? We have a person signed up to speak on item 4 on the agenda, and that's it. So, okay, so have a motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By unanimous consent, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay. Next, we have a presentation of the proclamation to the New Mexico Military Institute cadets. This proclamation is for the Military Institute cadets and coaches or parents be competing, for athletes competing in the 2022 Pentathlon World Youth Championships. So, yes, Council.
So if we could have all the cadets and their families come up, please. I just want to let everyone know, these students here, they represented the entire United States at this competition. And one cadet that's here tonight, too, is Charlotte House. Well, you can go to the podium, sorry. She competed, excuse me, last week in Poland for the Junior World Championship, representing the United States as well? Yes. So I just thought it's really neat that we have students from Roswell that, Charlotte's not from Roswell, but the rest of you are, correct? Yeah. Representing the entire United States, so that was pretty neat. So there were 4 athletes, and they were all coached by Jan Olinsky. And then Charlotte's father sent an email. I'd like to read part of it. And it says, in the great effort, passion, discipline, and success of all these great NMMI athletes should be known to as many people as possible. They are excellent examples of young people having goals and a vision, representing the U.S. in an excellent way, being in search for excellence, and in general trying to be the best of themselves. So I do have to say, Charlotte, you aren't in the proclamation because I didn't find out about this until today, that you competed in Poland. But we're very proud of you guys. So I'd like to give them all a big hand if we could. And Juanita Jennings, she's going to give you a little swag bag from Roswell.
Maybe I should have done it from up there, but anyway, sorry about that. Okay, today we have a proclamation here on behalf of the City of the Roswell and the Roswell City Council. Whereas hard work, dedication, sportsmanship, talent, and exceptional athleticism of 4 cadets at the New Mexico Military Institute have earned these students an invitation to compete on the world stage in Lugano, Italy. And whereas these 4 students from Roswell Roswell, New Mexico natives have brought honor to both their school, the City of Roswell, on the local, state, national, and international levels. And whereas the New Mexico Military Institute coaches and the parents of these 4 cadet student athletes were integral through their unwavering support. Therefore, I, Timothy Z. Jennings, the Mayor of Roswell, and the City Council of Roswell, do hereby recognize and give a hearty congratulations to Mary Catherine Oliveira, Jonah Pignon, Teresa Walker, and Charlotte House, with their parents, along with the NMI coaches, John Olinsky and Nathan Scrimpture, on their outstanding accomplishments for the competing in the 2022 UIPM Pentathlon World Championships. Therefore, I, Timothy Z. Jennings, Mayor of the City of Roswell, and the Roswell City Council, do hereby proclaim the City of Roswell recognizes these individuals on October the 13th, 2022 as there's the 2022 UIPM Pentathlon Youth World of Championships. So we have that, and we will have one more proclamation, and we will get it corrected, because I only had 3 in here, and I'm sorry for that, but we'll all get you all a new certificate, and we'll get it to you, and we'll all be in good shape. So, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. We'll get yours coming. Thank you all very much. Parents, thanks for your support. Thank you.
Can I get a picture with all of you guys and the mayor and the council?
Oh, okay.
Vente. Come on down here, Savino. Picture time.
Come on, young fellow, get in here, pose. Put a smile on your face.
Yeah. Good. No, good, good. I'll just get grab that. I'm good.
She was nice. Okay, are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Let me just grab one more. I'm sorry, man. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you, everyone.
Moving slow, yes.
Mr. Mayor, they didn't want to stay and hear the exciting things that happen in a city council meeting. They do have to get up early, I'm sure.
I'm sorry, the cadets have study hall, and they can't miss it, so they need to go back. I remember. And I still remember my cadet number, 654327. I just got the 7 on the wrong end. So, anyway, moving right along, next we have item 4. We have a zoning case. Is that right, everybody? Oh, so this is zoning case for approvals, case number 22-034, variance for the ordinance for cannabis-related businesses. And so anyone who is going to testify for this has to be sworn in? No? It's not a public hearing? Oh, yeah, they do?
Only for appeal hearings, they need to be sworn in, correct?
Is there anybody here to testify for an appeal? We haven't had an appeal yet. But, and if you'd like to testify for it one way or the other, then I probably, do they have to be sworn in?
Yeah, I would like to speak. I'm part of Dreams Cannabis, so I would like to
Okay. Did you sign up?
Yeah, I believe she has.
Okay, you're Cody, okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Mavers.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm sorry, Councilors.
If it would please all of you, you've seen this type of presentation now, I believe, 8 or 9 times. If you would like me to just hit the high points on this particular project, I would be more than willing to do that so that we can keep things moving. Okay? We're talking about tonight about zone change, case number 22-034. This is a request for a retail cannabis facility at 2303 North Main Street. And we had a problem with this at the Planning Commission meeting. You know when you call the people that work on your computer and the first thing you ask is it plugged in? It's the first thing we ask, is it turned on?
Would you
Anyway,
like,
23,
would you like one of the
2303.
councilmen to ask what we call that, or to answer that, or were you asking the question?
No, I was being facetious, sir.
Oh, okay.
All right. Anyway, zoning case 22034, Cass Plaza, 2303 North Main Street. For the picture right up in front of you, the proposed cannabis facility would be located at the far right end cap as you face the building. Okay. All around the property, C2, with one exception. To the immediate east, we have R3 property, but it is undeveloped R3 property at this time. You can see here from the overhead shots, the location of the cannabis facility and that R3 property immediately to the east. However, again, please note, the R3 property itself is undeveloped right now. It is over 350 feet, 345 feet, I believe, to the east to the nearest single-family residential developed property. Okay. Again, it's a proposal to go into Cass Plaza by Dreams Dispensary. They received their vice license on April 5th, 2022 from the state of New Mexico. They are requesting a variance to the minimum distance separation of 300 feet to the exterior property line due to the fact that the R3 property is immediately to the east. But again, I want to make it clear, it is undeveloped at this time. 2303 North Main is located within the C2 districts, therefore a zone change to C-CAN is not only required for them to move forward, but it is acceptable in this zone. There is the list of all of the items that they traditionally provide to all of us to make sure that we're following the state guidelines, the Cannabis Regulation Act, in the proper way, as well as our local ordinance. The last 2 items are recent additions. They have been issued their City of Roswell commercial business license. It says application pending. It's my understanding it's been issued, but hasn't been picked up yet. You're going to pick it up. Good, good. And they did issue or send in their signage plan. On October 11th, we did a quick review on it, and it does meet all the sign requirements. So, as of today's date, Planning and Zoning Office has received 0 written protests on this project and 0 phone inquiries. However, at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, one local resident did speak up regarding concerns over the increasing crime in the area. Not necessarily due to this particular thing, but generally the increasing crime. While the gentleman was there, I handed him my business card and asked him to give me a call, and I would get him in touch with Sergeant Grace Fesquez, who is handling our Neighborhood Watch program, to see if there was anything that could be done about the crime in the area. We also had one planning commissioner who expressed concerns over the total number of cannabis establishment permits, in particular being issued in the north end of town, and the possible negative effects to the community. We actually had quite a discussion about that. We are keeping an eye on the situation. We believe that the natural cycle of the economy will, forgive the phrase, weed out the ones that are unavailable, that are incapable of maintaining a positive cash flow. So we're keeping an eye on that. We are checking our taxes that are coming in on the properties every month. They are continuing to increase, of course, which is an indicator of continuing increasing sales. So we haven't quite reached saturation point yet. However, it might be a good time for the council to have a discussion about the total number of cannabis facilities, especially in the north end of town, and the possibility that maybe we've granted enough variances in the north end of town. So the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, they said based on the findings of fact, the zoning considerations, and the regulations established by our ordinances, the commission did hold a public hearing and make a motion to recommend to the city council. They actually recommended approval of zoning case 22034, which does include a variance a zone change to CCAN, and a conditional use permit with the standardized conditions of approval that you all have in Exhibit F. We've pretty much standardized those now, and they fit well with this project. They did recommend approval, however, it was a slightly split vote. 6 in favor, 1 opposed, Commissioner Henderson opposing. Recommendation to the City Council is to consider approval of zoning case 22034 for the variance, the zone change to CCAN, and a conditional use permit in order to operate a retail cannabis establishment located at 2303 North Main, and we stand for questions.
Okay. Okay, members of the council, we have anyone that would care to speak in favor or against this? Mr. Cody Fisher. Yes. Might state your name and who you represent, if you represent someone.
My name is Cody Fisher, and I'm a co-founder of FCI of New Mexico, which holds the vertical license, and that's the Dreams. We operate under the Dreams dispensary name, and we have a few brands that we've launched in the state too.
You might state where you're from?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm actually from Oklahoma, but I live in Aubrey, Texas at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead and start.
Go ahead.
Okay. First, I just wanted to say thank you guys for hearing our application, and I also wanted to just say thank you to everyone that's been involved in our application process. Everyone at the city has been really, really great and friendly, and that's helped a lot. These application processes are really stringent, so they worked really well with our consulting company, and we were able to get everything in a timely manner, and our application be submitted properly. First, I just wanted to give you guys a brief history about us. That way, you guys know who you're letting operate in the city. So, me and my dad, we actually started a company 4 years ago out of Texas. We operate over 35 retail stores across 3 states. Some of those are dispensaries. Some of those are CBD stores, which is the non-psychoactive part of the plant, and there's a lot of benefits there on that side as well too. We were really excited when New Mexico launched the program. We really felt like the rules were fair. We would be able to come in and compete. It wasn't over-regulated, but there was also enough regulations to where it wasn't going to get overly saturated. This location, I did want to just make a comment about, the locations and the approvals. It's actually really, really difficult to find a location that fits all those parameters. And then also, the landlord has to be able to allow it as well. A lot of times they have loans and, and things associated with their property where they can't even allow us in. So I would say 60 to 70% of the landlords and the companies that we call, they can't even look at us. And so we were excited when we found this location. We really, our consulting company, contacted you guys or the city, and we really thought that it was actually going to fit in all the parameters, but we didn't realize that zone where there was no houses also counted with the square footage. So I wanted to also talk about just about us, right? So our pillars, it's compassion, it's education, and it's innovation. I just want to give you guys an example of compassion. Right now as a company, we have 7 dispensaries open. We have 8 more on the way, and we're launching a coat drive across all the cities that we're in starting November 1st, so that way we can give back to the community in a positive way and provide coats to people who, maybe cannot afford them. Education is a really, really big part of our business model. And that's not along, just the patients, because when you do educate patients properly, that's when the market thrives the best. But it's also education as far as from a business standpoint, because we have operated a lot of these stores for a while and there's a lot of moving parts, we're able to develop, anybody that we hire within our company to rise up in the ranks. And so leadership development is a very, very important thing to us. We focus on teaching them skills that they are going to learn or they're going to need the rest of their lives. And that could be things like how to increase sales, how to communicate with a guest, how to manage inventory, You know, I mean, there's just all these different parts of the business, you know, where our teammates, you know, really get to learn a lot, you know, and I think with cannabis, sometimes, you know, we get the stigma of like, oh, all they want to do is just get people, you know, high, and that's so far from the case, you know. So I just wanted to say that and just make sure you guys felt, just you guys knew our history, and that you guys were allowing, you know, experienced operators in the state, and we are going to be positive members to the community. You won't hear a peep out of us, I swear. And so I'm just here to answer any questions that you guys have about our business in this location.
Okay, is there any further comments from anybody who speak for or against this application? All right, seeing none, does the council have any questions of this individual about Mr. Cody Fisher, about their operation of the Dreams? Yes, excuse me. Councilman Opresso. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, they turned on the paper, the machine today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions. How big is your company in a sense of how many employees are you planning on bringing? And are you planning on hiring local, or are you bringing from outside, or where?
Yes, no, so we're actively looking for candidates right now. I believe we have 2 people hired within the city. Right now, with the way sales are going, we're hiring about 6 to 8 people, you know, and they all come from, you know, the local community. It's a lot easier when, you know, they already live in the community, they're established, you know, they're close to the location. So yeah, I believe throughout the whole state, we have about 80 employees, and we've invested about over $5 million in the state so far.
What is your starting pay?
It's $14 to $17 an hour plus tips, is what they start out. So, you know, tips usually will range, they'll earn an extra $1 to $3 an hour with tips. So, you know, on average, you're looking like $16 to $20 an hour. And that's just the lower tier. If they're managing, if they're, you know, helping lead in any other way, you know, they can earn more. And we also, you know, we look for the leaders in each city, right, are the best people around the state, and then we actually will have them help with other locations and other things. And so, you know, a lot of the people and if we find that great person in Roswell, you know, they'll actually have the opportunity to help us, you know, in a much bigger capacity if they do a good job.
And the last one is, what kind of benefits are you offering for your employees?
So at this point, we have paid time off, and then as they, you know, as they basically earn it over time, right? And so we also offer, we're not doing, you know, medical insurance yet. We are looking into it. We're just trying to, you know, make sure you know, everything is solid and we get all our stores open. But yeah, right now it's paid time off, and you know, they get like free products and, you know, merch, and, you know, just we do little contests to, you know, where they can earn, you know, additional dollars that way. So yeah. So.
When you say time off, are you talking vacation, or
Yes.
are you talking?
Yeah, it's paid time off.
Sick leave?
No, it's paid time off.
Is sick leave included in the time off?
Well, I believe they can use it either way. So they get a certain amount of days, and they can use it however they want. I'd have to check with our vice president of sales on that.
And the reason I'm asking is because that's become a very important topic here in the last couple of years, you know, nationally.
Yeah.
That sick leave is very important for workers.
Yes, for sure. You know, and I can give you an example right now. You know, we have a teammate in Farmington, and he's been going through a lot of medical issues, and the team's actually all, like, you know, bound together and was trying to help him out. And we've been very easy with his schedule and saying, hey, if you don't feel good, you go home. You're not gonna lose your job or anything like that. You know, so but I would love to, you know, go back to the ownership team and see if there's anything we can do for sick pay, for sure.
I wish you would address that. Thank you.
I will.
Excuse me, next we have Council Lady Halverson, please.
And my questions aren't for you, it's more comment for Mr. Mavers. I too am concerned about the amount of stores opening up north. I don't know how many of you have been to Trinidad, Colorado. When you drive, there's like every street corner has a shop that's selling cannabis. And I don't want Roswell to turn into that, so I don't know if you can encourage people not you, but any more that come in, try to spread out a little, you know. I just don't want us to look like that's what our town is about. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could make a quick comment too, so we, me and my dad, we drove to the city and, we had brokers looking, and like this was actually the only location that met our requirements. There was no other location. There are some other, buildings and stuff, but they're further away from prime retail. And I think the further you are away from those prime retail areas, the actual less safe that it can become, because there's not enough, attention. So that's why we like to be in clean, professional, nice looking spaces that are right out in the open, so it looks, good presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Lady Halverson. Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What type of corporate citizen are you in the communities that you're in now? Are you supporting activities in the community beyond just coming in and operating a retail basis, or are you supporting any kind of groups, nonprofits? Or what is your corporate policy on that?
Our main pillars, and that's actually one of the things I'm very passionate about, is opioid use and homelessness. I'm from actually Oklahoma, and there was times where it was really, really bad there. The opioid epidemic really hit hard, and there's actually a lot of positive stories about where when cannabis is allowed and there's more access, that opioid use goes down, right? So those are the organizations that we like to partner with those two causes. And I actually just talked to our team today about finding a place in each city that we're in to be able to actually donate the coats, that we're doing for our drive. And so that's always been a part of our philosophy in any community that we've been in, and that we actually encourage the store manager and the teammates. How can we get out in the community? Like, who can we help? What events do you guys know about? And we work with, people that are in the community to be involved. I believe we've already done 6 or 7 events throughout the state in the last 6 months, where we've either donated or shown up for support, or, just different aspects.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hildebrand. Next, we have Councilman Perry.
My questions would be for Mr. Mavers, I think, more at this time. So with R3 coming right behind there, could you please once again explain to council what can go into an R3?
Okay, I'm sorry, Counselor, could you speak in directly into the
Could
microphone?
you explain again to council what can go into R3?
What can go into R3? Quite a wide variety, but it's primarily intended for multifamily development, up to 32 units to the acre, potentially. There are some other applications for the R3 with some office buildings and other things that could possibly go in there as well, but at this point in time, we have no applications, and, oh, there we go, thank you, Hess, appreciate that. Again, potentially churches, convents, monasteries, parish houses, multiple family dwellings with no more than 12 units per net acre, and 24 units per net acre for 2-story dwellings. Okay? Home occupations, assisted living. There are a few other things. You could do a bed and breakfast, a boarding home, but it's primarily residential uses or very limited commercial uses.
Okay. And those commercial uses are more of a professional use?
Correct. Professional or possibly medical.
Okay. For those reasons, I just want to just remind that I know that each one of these are being considered on an individual basis, but I sure don't, as we looked at this and the state gave us the authorities to look at some of these in governances from a municipal way, we tried not to overload and make it fair, but at the same time be able to protect those that are in those residential areas. And for that reason, I just want to caution us to really consider even though it may be blank dirt right now, that could be a development that has children in it one day. It could be an assisted living facility. It could be a lot of things, and I just don't want us to neglect that consideration. My other question is, at this time, can you pull the picture back up? That would help me quite a bit. I drive past, but I've not drove into the parking lot of that facility yet. The other, keep going, if you could, I'm sorry. To the one that you had one that was a street view. Is there fencing in the back? Is there a block wall in the back? What is behind this facility?
Back behind the facility, you have a considerable amount of parking for staff and other people. You've also got a one-way drive-through that'll eventually be utilized by firehouse subs, and then beyond that, the alley or the service corridor.
So there is no wall, there is no barrier, fencing?
No, not at this time.
Okay. That also remains for a concern for me as well. So at this time, I yield with those questions. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, maybe, I don't know if there's anyone else in the audience that is in favor or against, but we'll hear that, I'm sure, as we go and hear what the community thinks. Thank you.
Yep.
Council Lady Arnold, please.
Mr. Fisher, can you tell me, do you have a lease with your landlord?
Yes,
How long is your lease?
5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the person who developed this, he actually is the franchisee of the Firehouse Subs, and we did 2 other deals with him in a few other cities, and so he built the space exactly how we needed it to be, and so at this point we're ready to open in the next week at this point, and we've invested over $150,000 to $185,000 in the city of Roswell.
Is that all? Okay, Council Lady Best.
Yes, this is probably for Kevin. Who is the developer, and is it not true, or is it not in our ordinance that we're supposed to have at least 6-foot fencing to divide R3 from the businesses?
Typically, that would be required on the R3 property, not on the commercial property. The commercial property, you have access to the service corridor. That's where the trash cans and everything else are. You need to have pedestrian access. You need to get out the back that way. And I know when this project first came through before I was here in Roswell, so I don't know all the discussions and details that went into it, but typically, again, if the R3 property across the other side developed, they would be the ones that would put in a wall, a separation wall between the uses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Foster.
Mr. Mavers, this is still for you. I know on Second Street, we have required the commercial properties to put up 6-foot fences on the back of their property, but that's facing R1. So I'm wondering if it's just different because it's commercial to R1, or if it's...
Actually, that's it has less to do with the R1 property and more to do with the R4 property. Most of the properties that have fences at the rear, okay, are those R4 properties that are in the West End Business Corridor right now. There are some other uses that we did require, most notably, and I'll go back to the Crumlin Auto Center, where we did that is to provide a buffer, a barrier for noise and sound and other things. They, again, would not typically have been required, but for security, safety, noise, and other things, it is required. It's looked at on a case-by-case basis, but it's my understanding that it's the R4 zone and the development requirements for R4 that require a physical barrier between that, because those lots are very narrow. They tend to get very, they have similar design and development requirements to the R3 downtown zone, so you get businesses that are built property line to property line. There is no standardized setback, and so I believe the discussions at that time revolved around, okay, what do we do to provide some kind of barrier or some kind of buffer there? And that's why you see that more in the R4 zone than in the R2. I'm sorry, C4 zone as opposed to C2.
Okay, C4, okay.
C4, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. I did want to make one comment too. There was an article that was actually published about this hearing, and they had said in it, I don't know if it was true or not, but they had said that we're actually only the second company that has come in to Roswell that wasn't already here. So I wanted to make that point. And obviously, the Firehouse Subs, he knows what we are. And I wanted to just let you go. I've already made a great relationship with the owner of the Miracle Ear. He actually moved down the street from downtown. He's been in the city for 30 years. and his wife uses cannabis for her, I cannot remember what the condition is, but he's a supporter, and Nadeem is the person who developed the location. He actually reached out to him before he even let us sign the lease, and he was all for it. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Well, you might check with Firehouse Sub since you're so close to them and see when they're gonna open. I mean, there's been an awful lot of questions about that. They've been like that for about 8 months in Roswell, or maybe longer.
Yeah, he said that he was having some issues, and something about he may sell the location. I don't know what's going on at all, but he said there was some issues.
So you're not a guinea pig or anything, you're just here along. He didn't just send you first to see
No,
whether you're
no,
not a
no,
sacrificial lamb or anything.
no. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Well, hope not.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay,
Me
well,
neither.
that is a question that goes around Roswell quite a bit, is when they're gonna open.
Yeah.
So you might tell him.
Okay, I will.
Any further comments? Yes, Councilman Norpresa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, since you brought that up, and there may be a possibility, if it could happen, what would happen to your business here in Roswell?
Say that again, I'm so sorry.
If the owner of the building decides to sell,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking about he was gonna sell that franchise. So he's to be the owner, but the Firehouse Subs, he's actually the franchisee, but he's gonna be selling it to another franchisee is what I
okay,
thought he
I
was-
misunderstood. I
Yeah,
thought it
sorry.
was the building. Thank you.
Yeah, no, he was talking about the subs. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Mavers, you did make one comment a little bit when you were in this discussions. You did make some comment about it seemed like we have all these facilities up on one end of town. And I would just caution about trying to zone people to different ends of town. You know, you can make the same arguments about department stores. You can make the same arguments about auto dealerships. There's a number of things when we start trying to zone people out of places that there can create a lot of other issues that are out there, and I would be careful. I mean, you know, it's really hard to control with zoning where people invest their money, and it's just kind of hard. You know, if you look, unless you reward those people for zoning in the area that you want them to be in, by some way, shape, or other, you know, just like in all our motor vehicle offices are in the north part of Roswell except one. And I'll bet to the guy on the south side, it's all by himself. I'll bet he doesn't want any of the other ones down there, because he does a land house business. And so there's just, I don't know how you do on zoning, so we have to be real careful, but if you have a willing buyer and willing seller, sometimes you just have to.
We wrote the cannabis ordinance in a very well-defined manner. It does, however, and I just want to assure the entire council, staff is in no way, shape, or form involved in site selection. We allow the applicant to determine where they want to go. We walk them through the process. The only reason many of these are coming with a variance is because they don't meet a particular section of our code. To that end, yes, we have now 6 approved facilities in the north end of town, and I would say north of 4th or 5th Street. We have 6. We have 3 in what I would call midtown, between 2nd Street. I believe there's another one right downtown in the C3 zone, and then we just approved one a month or 2 ago at the 300 block of South Main. Okay? We have one more cannabis facility that is on the books. It's an applicant, and it is way down south. Okay? That particular applicant looked at the marketplace, realized that the market was still wide open in the south end of town, and let market dynamics choose that site. So they did their own due diligence. They came forward. They're walking through the process. This one will come forward, will not require a variance because the property that they purchased like 20 acres on the south end of town, and they're going to do a plat map, carve out 1 acre that meets all the separation and all the distance requirements, and that will be the one spot where we will rezone for CCAN when they come forward. But that's going to be a very cool facility. They're investing a lot of money in it, and it is going to be an alien-themed facility, cannabis facility, so it's going to be fit right in with the overall Roswell theme.
Okay, thank you. And just like all those hospitals, all our healthcare facilities, almost all of them are in the north side of town, and it, you know, when you're down south, the people down south love to hear the helicopters go over, as long as they're not landing in their backyard. So, you know, it's all, people, the way things go is just how they develop, so we kind of have to go that way. But thank you very much. So, so next we have a motion for item number 4.
Mr. Mayor, it is a public hearing, so we would need to hear from the public.
But I asked if anyone cared. Does anyone in the public care to speak? I asked earlier if anyone cared to speak. We had one, Mr. Fisher did. Does anyone else care to speak? Seeing none?
Okay.
Is that good enough?
Yes, sir. We just want to make
Okay,
sure that
well-
whether for or against had the ability, and I didn't think there'd be any looking out in the crowd, but you never know. Mr. Mayor, because I do believe in that things should be done decently in order, and they have come forth, and it has been sent forward to us by the P&Z Commission. I do make a motion. I do make a motion that we approve zoning case 22-034, the CAN, which would be a request which would allow for the variance to distance requirements for cannabis-related businesses at 2303 North Main Street for motion purposes only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Council Lady Arnold. Are there any further discussions by the council? Clerk, call the roll.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Councilor Horn.
Counselor Moore?
Didn't he say yes?
More.
Oh, more. I thought you said more. Counselor Moore. Absent.
Counselor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Counselor Perry?
No.
Counselor Best?
No.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Abessa?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, motion passes by a vote of 7-2. I believe that's right. So, okay, next we have, moving right along, one I missed a item, public participation. If we have, for items that are coming up on the calendar today, we had one person sign up, Mr. Bud Kunkel. Mr. Kunkel, if you would please come up and for your time to speak on one of the agenda items we have on the council. And those of you who might not remember, Mr. Kunkel is the head of the Airport Advisory Commission that we have, and I believe he wants to report on where we are with that as well. Mr. Kunkel.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Thanks again for allowing me to present information from the Airport Advisory Commission to you this evening. As I'd mentioned last month, the agricultural portion of our economy is not especially strong in Chaves County. Three Amigos Dairy, with approximately 11,000 head of livestock and 35-plus employees, is now vacant. So about 29 of 50 dairies in our area have closed in the last 5+ years. This makes operating the Roswell Air Center in a more businesslike manner a critical requirement for our economic development and jobs in our area. We all know that Hvac has ceased operations. AirSale has recently reduced its staffing from 350 plus or minus people to approximately 150, with approximately 125 of those being aircraft mechanics. Some significant personnel changes have occurred at the RAC in the last 2 weeks. So to use a term from our interim Air Center Director, Mr. Juan Fuentes, it appears to be a great opportunity for a reset. I want to thank Councilors Hildenbrand, Perry, and Korn for attending our commission meeting Tuesday afternoon. I think you've seen some significant changes in our meeting format and what we discuss at our meetings. Our goal is to have staff develop and provide information to us that allows knowledgeable business decisions or recommendations to you on the City Council to hopefully better utilize and maintain the RAC for the benefit of the taxpayer and to provide an improved environment for generating jobs at the Roswell Air Center. The Commission is now reviewing income and expense information on a monthly basis. We don't have our format exactly like we want it yet, but that information should show trends that we have never before monitored. Like any business would use this financial information to where it stands at the end of every month. We are also identifying lease information to analyze the unleased properties and why they are not leased. We hopefully can provide the legal committee with a first pass overview of upcoming leases that are being reviewed. The Commission voted to recommend to the Council that the $5 million recently obtained in capital outlay funds by Councilor Perry be utilized to complete the utilities infrastructure development to the southeasterly portion of the Air Center. In our further discussion of the February 2021 Airport Committee report, the recommendation to develop a joint powers agreement between the city and Chaves County is in progress with a hopeful effective date in January 2023. The Air Center Strategic Plan RFP was modified in the evaluation criteria point system to better reflect the Commission's desire for a quality product. The tentative time frame is the end of February 2023 to execute a contract on the RFP with completion of the plan hopefully in late 2023. Significant discussion was held referenced the BLM tanker base to provide a plan that better supported BLM, but did not negatively impact the existing MRO tenants at the Air Center. Marketing of Dallas and Phoenix commercial flights was discussed due to the downward trend in passengers over the last several months. Staff will begin looking at ways to hopefully increase passenger enplanements. Another aspect of the February 2021 report that I've saved for last in my discussion is the hiring or recruitment of a professional to run the Air Center or contracting with a professional management firm to run the Air Center. This is an extremely critical component of our reset at the Air Center, and any expediting that can be done to rectify this situation, in the opinion of the Commission, is time well spent. I realize it's quite a bit of important information, but the Airport Commission is attempting to assist the city to better operate the Air Center as a business and maximize the use of the facility for the benefit of the taxpayer and to create an environment to develop more jobs at the Air Center. This concludes my report. I stand for any questions you may have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Kunkel. We have questions from Mr. Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kunkel, as usual, your report is eye-opening. You mentioned early on in your report there where, excuse me, one of our MROs had a payroll of 350, and they've just recently downsized 150 positions.
Downsized to 150, so a decrease of about 200 positions.
I'm sorry.
They currently have 150 employees, so it's a decrease of approximately 200 employees.
Okay, and you said 125 of them are the actual mechanics?
125 of the 150 are mechanics, the rest is management.
What kind of economic impact does this have in your estimation?
Most mechanics that are newer into the business, a low-end income would be $50,000 to approximately $70,000. More seasoned mechanics can make six figures. If you use 60,000 times 200, that would show you a direct economic impact in lost wages. I don't know how much of those wages would be spent in the community, but younger folks, maybe they'd save 15 or 20% of those wages. So you're probably looking at 75 to 80% of those wages being spent on services in the community, housing, automobiles, things like that. The other thing that impacts, think through the process of current development here in town. I think it's 112 new units that are coming online, hopefully early next year, out at Spring River Apartments off of Sycamore. And if Mr. Kumar gets his property in order on Kentucky, where it used to be an elder care facility, that's somewhere in the range of 90 to 100 units. So if you've just lost 200 employees that would generally make use of that kind of facility, that makes it a little tough on those property owners too. So it's not just the loss of wages because those people have moved on. It also impacts businesses, restaurants, apartment owners, and people like that. That very clearly points out the importance of that air center and the jobs out there.
Mr. Mayor, one more quick question. Is this downward trend at this one facility you're familiar with, do you think it's percolating through the other MROs we have out there, or you just don't have an opinion on that?
I don't have great knowledge of that, to tell you the truth. I do know that in my conversation with the folks at Air Sale, many of those mechanics, they sent them out to Goodyear in Arizona, and that's where they're sending most of their aircraft as opposed to sending them here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Kunkel.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilman Perry.
This is not a question, more of comment. I just wanted to state, I understand, Mr. Mayor, is going to be that this, the request for consideration coming from the AAC will be going to the Infrastructure Committee, so I want to encourage any and all that have any thoughts to come and discuss that. And just to say that I've not been contacted, I've not been requested my presence in any meetings or any discussions to discuss anything at all about the $5 million being changed from one place to another until I heard about it just through the grapevine. And so I haven't had any discussion whatsoever concerning that money that we worked hard to get. And so I think there needs to be a very true conversation about the direction of that money and hear from that from all sides to make a very clear determination as where we go with that. When we passed that joint resolution with the county, it was very clear what the county expected us to do if we received the $5.5 million, and it was very clear in that joint resolution what we expected of the county if they received that $5 million. And there was a joint effort in recognition that if they received money of where it would go, and there was a very clear understanding, at least to the citizens at that time, and to the county commission and to the city council and the governor's office as to what would be the direction of the $5 million that we requested. So things are changing and changing sort of quickly, and I'm sort of just left just to wonder where we're going. So I just want to make sure that when we go to that committee that we all recognize that, and we encourage everyone to come and to be part of that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Perry. Councilman Opresa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quite honestly, I didn't expect you to be here tonight, but I'm glad you are, because I really want to address or try to circle back to last meeting. Because after last meeting, I went in and reviewed a list of properties that were given to us, that were sent to us email from the Air Center staff, and they had like 98 properties on there. And the charge per square foot goes from 0 to the highest one that I found was $24.19 per square foot. And there's a number of different variances in between. And so I know that now that you're over the airport committee, I'm sure you're going to be working very, very hard with the airport staff. And so is this one of the items that you're going to try and address as to how to determine the charge per square foot to kind of be uniform with the staff at the airport?
That's a good question. First of all, uniformity on a per unit basis for the various buildings out there is not realistic. Some of the buildings are extremely large. The $24+ a square foot one, it's my understanding that's a 6x8 or something like that closet space that contains IT equipment. So obviously that's going to be on a per unit basis extremely high. A bunch of the larger buildings are at $1.25, $1.50 a square foot. But those are big hangars. The complexity of the buildings that are out there precludes, at least in my opinion, setting a specific rate that's standardized across the board. I think a good example, and hopefully I don't tread on anybody's feet here, but I think a good example may be the area out there that is fenced off from the rest of the airport where they have the drag strip. And we've got a specific amount per square foot for the acreage that that thing sits on. And again, in my opinion, it's pretty difficult to say that that location that's fenced off from the rest of the airport that doesn't have access, ramp space, things like that, next to the main runway, how can that property be as good as one that's right next to the runway? It doesn't make good sense to me. So that may be an extreme example, but we've got some initial thoughts to hopefully answer your question. And one of those is the ideal situation of a joint powers agreement. At some point, the county will come forward and they will suggest we have this much funding that we're willing to put into this agreement. I don't think we know what that is right now.
So, if I can just interrupt you, at this point in time, what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there is no set standard to determine fair market value for the majority of the buildings out there? Am I understanding you correct?
I don't know that you can say that there's no set standard. I think there hasn't been a professionally done market-based analysis to determine what various properties should be leased for.
Okay.
So one of the things that I will likely propose in the next couple of months is if we get this joint powers agreement put together, I'm hopeful that the county's willing to come up with some funding for that. And the Air Center really needs two things. It needs a professional inspection by an engineering firm. In my conversations, I don't think the city staff has the expertise to do that to all those buildings that are out there. So we identify the problems with the buildings, the good things about the buildings, fire suppression on the buildings, the roof conditions, electrical service conditions, all of those kinds of things. And those won't change that much over time. So we need a good report that we can refer to for the next 5 to 10 years. Once that report is done, the city will have a good handle on the condition of those various buildings. Then I would suggest that the next step is to hire a professional appraisal firm to come in and inspect those buildings using the engineering study that we've got, and then use the data that they would develop from surrounding airports, air centers, some superior, some inferior, and make reasoned appraisal adjustments or appraiser adjustments on the buildings that we have out there. That's probably the ideal way to do that. If we can't do that in an ideal manner, basically you do what we've continued to do, and that is we hope that the tenants can afford to pay this, and you just keep increasing the rents.
Let me take you back to last month.
Okay.
When we talked about building 611. And I realized that the lease for building 611 is water under the bridge, because we've lost out on it. However, I want to have a clear understanding, clear as possible, of why it seems to me that we treat some businesses or entities in one way and others in a different way. I went back and listened to the tape meeting the council had on January the 14th, 2021. And by hearing the information from that meeting, I don't believe that the lease amount for building 611 was the issue for making the amendment. The amount of the lease was not the issue. The issue that I came up with was the fact that the lease was not an aeronautical or airline business related. it seemed to me that there was an objection from the council at that time for the building to be leased for 20 additional years, which would have prevented the city from offering the building to be leased or to be sold to an airline type of business. I just have a concern that we will be considered as discriminated against certain entities if we prohibit leasing to certain entities or businesses, and the fact that this type of practice will prevent the city from securing additional needed revenue. One of the things that you pointed out at that last meeting was that the city had lost out on approximately $322,000, which was due to the fact that the council amended the lease that have been negotiated with them. I myself misspoke and indicated that the Department of Health had agreed to a 5-year contract with four options of additional 5-year options, and that was incorrect. They actually agreed to a 5-year contract with 3 additional 5-year options. Just to clear that up. And as noted at the meeting, the council amended the language at the January 2021, or January the 14th to be exactly, 2021 meeting to reduce the contract to a 2-year lease with 3 1-year options for a total of 5 years. The council approved the amended language on a 5-5 vote, with the mayor breaking the tie and voting to approve the amendment. It was also stated at the last meeting that the amended contract was then signed by the Department of Health, and after signing the contract, they decided to opt out of the contract. I believe it was stated that the city did not force them out because they signed the amended contract, and then they decided not to go through with it. I went back and I asked Air Center staff to see the signed contract, and I was informed at that time that the Department of Health never signed the contract. And I think we got people here from the Department of, from the Air Center, and if they want to verify that, that's up to them. What I was told was the Department of Health decided to walk away from the amended contract. And if this is true, the agreement or the argument can be made that the city did force them out by reducing the time of the lease. So the information that you, Mr. Kunkel, provided us with last month was correct. Building 611 has been empty since February the 1st, 2021. And the city has not generated any revenue off of that building since then. And I'm basing this on the fact that it hasn't come through legal. I know they are negotiating with Ascent for some office space, but I would go one step further than you did, Mr. Kunkel. I would suggest that the revenue lost to date will be a total of $380,000. $188. However, this amount would be reduced by the expenses that would have been incurred, such as utility bills, maintenance, and whatever else expenses there was in the contract. The city actually had the potential of actually generating a total of $1,196,720 minus expenditures at the end of the 5-year lease. It also had the potential of generating a total of $4,786,880 minus expenses over 20 years they had already agreed to. The potential net generated would obviously be offset by whatever amount it will generate in the next 20 years, if it ever is leased out. So I went by and I use Excel quite frequently. So I used the Excel spreadsheet to determine percentages increase. The Department of Health was willing to have their lease increased by 118.18% when you compare the last contract figure of $5.50 per square foot against the new amount of $12 per square foot, beginning the first year of their contract. And that amount would have increased approximately 3% annually over the 5-year term. So at the beginning of the 5th year of their contract, they would be paying a total of $13.51. So when you compare the $5.50 against the $13.51, you would end up with an increase of 145.64%. So when one looks at these kind of numbers, it is very hard, at least for me, not to conclude that the city definitely was not subsidizing the New Mexico Department of Health. So the question I feel needs to be asked is why? Why was this contract not approved by the council when there are a number of other buildings being leased that are not aeronautic or airplane connected, such as the Youth Challenge Program, Sidney Gutierrez Charter School, Aliyah building getting worked on, and there's a number of other ones. We currently have a lease with a 10-year term with the option of 30 additional 10-year terms that was approved effective 12/1/2020. Was there other reasons we were not informed about for turning the Department of Health away from the building? And I don't know, right now, the lease that is in negotiations, I guess I can ask whoever comes up from the Air Center as to what is the amount that they're going to be asking a cent to be paying. Is it well over $12, or is it going to be $12, or is it going to be below? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Norpresident. Next, we have Councilman Perry.
No, I just had one question. Thank you, Mr. Kunkel, you mentioned the joint powers agreement that's being considered. Is that something that was requested by the AAC, or was it requested by staff? I'm not against us looking towards that, but where's that direction coming from?
It was originally coming from the AAC, but that was one of the recommendations in the February 2021 report that was provided at the end of that committee report. I think there were 12 people on that committee, and that report was provided to the council in February, and then it was kind of shelved.
Okay. Thank you.
We resurrected that report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Kunkel, thank you for you all and for your airport committee, what you do. You have a big task to look at that and get our feet back on the ground and understanding the difference between 10 cents a square foot, and some places you can charge that and other places you can't. And so I appreciate you all using your expertise to make sure we can find and lease the buildings for a fair market rate to attract more business here to Roswell.
Thank you. We appreciate your attention. And to Councilor Oropesa's comment, our intention is that either myself or John Hitchcock will present at each council meeting subsequent to our Air Center meeting.
Thank you very much, and I hope the clerk will take notice that we probably need to put a little space on them for the report to the city. Okay, next we have item 5 on today's agenda, to approve the minutes of the city council workshop in the September 8th regular city council
Mayor,
meeting.
that's consent. We're on 18.
Oh, we're on 8?
18.
Oh, we went back to 18. Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. That was consent. Okay. Item 18,
18A, the authorization of the AVEX Aerospace.
18A. Put it on the other list. Okay, 18A, that was the removal of item 6, to authorize the AVEX Aerospace lease for bunkers 133 and number 137. Councilman Perry. Is that right?
Counselor Hildebrandt stepped out for a moment. It would be under him if, I think I heard the door. Give him just a moment, if you would, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll give you just a moment. We'll give him a moment to.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. So we're on item
18A,
18A, which is the
item 6.
item 6 from the original agenda. And it is to authorize AVEX Aerospace to enter into an interim lease for bunkers 1133 and 1137. That original lease was set to expire
November 30th,
November
2022.
30th, and they have now requested that this lease be extended to March 31 of 23.
Correct.
And so I would like to make a motion to alter that lease to the expiration date of March 31 of 23. Yeah, and to approve.
We have a motion to amend this item 6 on our agenda to strike the date of November 30th, 2022, and replace that with March 31st, 2023. Do we have a motion from Councilman Perry? And
No, we
You're-
already made a motion.
You have a motion.
we have a motion. And who seconded? Councilman Foster?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman
may I
Han-
just ask one question of staff? The staff supports the change?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would care to speak for or against this? Yes, ma'am. Anything you have to say? Is that no?
No.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion before us by Councilman Hildebrand, seconded by Councilman Foster, wasn't that right? To strike the November 30th, 2022, and replace it with March 31st, 2023. Is there any objection? Is that all right? You want us to call the roll? Voice vote. We'll have a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have a unanimous vote for those that are here, so that date is best. Now we're back on the discussion on item number 6, on the lease on Billings 133. Or excuse me.
We're on item number 19.
Well, no, but we have to vote on
The-
passing.
The, I understood the motion to be to change the date and to approve.
So I think,
Are we okay?
did you put the motion to amend it or to change it and approve? Just to amend it? Okay, now we'll need a motion to approve the item number 18A, which is the item 6, which is to approve the lease for bunker number 1133. All those in favor signify by.
But we need, if we're going to have that, then we need a motion and a second.
Yeah.
All right.
So I divert to Counselor Hildebrand on that.
Yeah. Wherever we are on this one.
Thank you.
And I thought we had it covered first go around, but
I-
I guess we didn't. So
Councilman Hildebrand.
I move that we approve the lease as amended.
That was motion by Councilman Hildebrand, seconded by Councilman Foster. And seeing no further debate, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative, it has passed. Next to the next item, was it 19?
18.
18, back on A, the second lease.
Did we do 18?
That was 18A, now it's 18.
That's the next one.
That was 18A.
We do 18A without doing 18.
We just did.
Well, because they
Mr.
said we
Mayor,
were
I
on
make-
18A, so we knew, so,
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 22-63, which is the agreement with the New Mexico Department of Transportation for the Atkinson Project, CNLP 20032, which is $2,689,000 with 95%. At the there's a comma missing, so I'm assuming that's the $2,554,550 from the New Mexico Department of Transportation's participation and the city's match of 5% at $134,450.
we have a motion by Councilman Perry, second by Councilman Foster. To approve, adopt Resolution 22-63. Mr. Nahar, would you care to explain?
Mayor, Council, good evening. What you have before you is a resolution to support the project with the DOT. I call this Atkinson Phase 3. The reason I call it Phase 3, this is the third project that the engineering department has been successful in getting DOT funding. The first one was Atkinson from McGaffey to Second. The second one was the one we're working on now from Second to Cherry. And now this will close the corridor from Cherry to College. We also did work from College all the way to Terra Berenda when we did some Nova Chip. So we've been working on Atkinson corridor aggressively. As you can see, we're successful in getting a $2.7 million project. DOT will pay $2.5 million. We pay $134,000. That's already part of the budget under the TPF item, or we had put in for several projects, and we just threw money in there to cover our match. But I believe the match is already there. Infrastructure recommended it 4-0, and you can see if you haven't driven Atkinson lately because of the construction, it's still bumpy on the parts that we haven't worked on. But again, I'm very excited because this $2.7 million project will also include about $1 million of water lines, so that's going to help the water department line item, that they won't have to come up with $1 million change order like they did this last project. And I stand for any questions.
Yes, Councilman Hildebrand.
I couldn't quite understand. Did you say this is already in your current budget?
I believe it is. I think if you look into the line item for TPF, there's $134,000. I think what was put in there was the highest match, and that would have been this one.
Could you confirm that, Mr. Fuentes?
Just the match.
Mr. Mayor and Councilor Hildebrand, I believe the match, and when we worked on the budget in anticipation of of receiving a project, believe, which one is you, here's the TPS.
Ooh, it's going away. Oh, there goes IT.
So I don't see it here, the TPS.
Okay.
So we'll have to come back.
Yeah, I guess it's not in there.
Street repairs only 100,000, but that's.
No, that's all they do. Meyer, I thought the TPS were in there, but it's not.
So the match money is not in the budget right now, and the grant is not in the budget either, so it will require a budget amendment.
Mr. Mayor, I think we'll put this top and center of our mid-year. This project needs to be done, and the need is definitely high, and by the time we get to mid-year, we'll have maybe some flexibility in the budget depending on what we've got left out there, but I feel fairly confident we can cover this.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay, thank you, Councilman Perry.
may I just ask, Mr. Nahar, what are the timelines with
Okay,
agreement
now I
with
was
the
just about
department?
to-
Yeah, what are the timelines with?
Okay, so
the
what's
Department of
time,
Transportation?
the first thing is you guys pass it today. Tomorrow morning, it's already at the mayor's office. I hand delivered it this afternoon. He will sign the resolution and the agreement. We send it up to Santa Fe. It usually takes 60 to 90 days to get something back from Santa Fe. So the plans are already done. So I can, probably have about 90 days before we would even be thinking about bidding it. And
My question, I think, Mr. Nahar, I'm sorry for interrupting, Mr. Mayor, if I could, is there a timeline with the Department of Transportation that we stand the chance of losing this to another community?
Negative.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Any further questions? So you insinuating you want me to sign something that is not funded and has not been approved by my finance committee and my 10 councilmen? To
It's a
sign that we're gonna spend that money on something that we haven't done yet?
What we have is a resolution of support.
Oh, but that means they have to fund it. What happens if they don't fund it?
You can't beat 5 cents on the dollar.
Oh, I can understand that, but we've had other people say we got $11, $12 million, $14 million, and I haven't
Mr.
found
Mayor,
that
to
yet.
clarify my comments, I don't have it, but I feel quite confident we can find it. Just so there's not any confusion, and a lot of it depends on the continued increase that we're seeing in gross receipts over budget. That's a big question mark. And then two, if what the rate that the various entities in the city of Roswell is spending their money. And I can't, my crystal ball is pretty cloudy, as it usually is. But this is a very needed project, and we'll figure it out.
The other thing, Mayor and Council, the DOT did not meet until August to award all the projects statewide. So I'm sure all the other entities are going through the same thing. And that's why I say, to answer Mr. Perry's question, I'm sure that all the entities that were lucky enough to get awarded are having the same process that they have to do to amend the budget.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, this is one of those deals that you kind of get caught up in when you're dealing with other government entities. They're not going to meet on this till August. We sure want our proposal in front of them. We don't want to be dragging our feet about that. And so it gets kind of, almost gets down to chicken or egg kind of thing. And I happen to know firsthand, and anybody else that's ever traveled that street, although it's been months since I've been able to go down it, because of the construction work that's already been accomplished. And I applaud Mr. Nahar for taking care of the plumbing underneath it. And so we're gonna, I'm just the chairman. I've got 3 other people I've got to convince on that committee, Mr. Mayor, and with Mr. Nahar's assistance in that endeavor, I feel quite positive that we can find this money, but it's going to take a review, and anybody thinks it's going to be a one-day meeting at mid-year, better rethink that. They better have probably 2 or 3 days of time scheduled in January or February, because and the timing's right. They're going to meet in August. Then Mr. Nahar said it takes another 90 days on their end. So that gets us into the January, February timeframe. And I can't predict it will be meeting in January because it takes a while for our financial people to be able to pull all the numbers together. And I understand that's a big project to get all of that done. But as soon as we can get to it, after we start closing the books in mid-year, we're going to do it. Now, very soon, we're going to be looking at the first quarter, so we should have an indication in the next meeting, hopefully, I'm getting a nod, where we can start angling some things and be able to come up with the appropriate amount of money needed for this worthwhile project.
Okay, thank you. When
And
will
that's
this-
all you're going to get from me, Louis, today.
When will this project be through?
When will this project be through?
Assume we approve this, I mean, nobody's gonna meet till August to approve this?
No. The project, the DOT awarded the funds in August of 2022. That's
Last August, not next August.
Yeah, the DOT Highway Commission. We had this, Highway Commission is the one that awarded this $2.6 million.
Okay, so when will this project be completed? If we decide
Completed,
on it?
probably 6 months after I bid it.
Okay. Thank you, Council Lady Halverson.
Just a quick comment. I know we talked about this before. You don't give me an answer now, but I would like to see Atkinson before Lanes eventually. I think it would help with the traffic flow. Just,
What was that?
I would like to see Atkinson 4 lanes like Union is eventually. I know we've talked about that in the past, and you said there's a lot of, that goes into that, but, and you don't have to go into it now, but I'd like to see that.
Okay, remember that Atkinson is also State Road 256, so that would be another entity that would be involved.
Yep. Thank you, Councilman Orpresa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a suggestion, if we can't find the 134,000, I would suggest that we do have a reserve amount of 312s, and since we are only required to carry 112, that maybe that's a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Orpresa. Are there any further comments on this item 18? Okay, seeing we have a motion to approve it. Item 18 by Councilman Perry, seconded by Councilman Foster. Any further discussion by anybody in the audience or council members? Okay. The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Halverson?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
Counselor Corn?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Counselor Perry?
Yes.
Counselor Best?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Orpesa?
Yes.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you, council.
Motion passed 9-0. There's one absent. Moore's absent. Oh, she's on the phone. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, 10-0. Sorry, Councilman. Okay, next we have item 19. Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we authorize Daniels Welding to enter into a lease for building number 81 and the fenced area around building number 81.
Have a motion by Councilman Hildebrand, seconded by Councilman Halverson. Arnold, excuse me. So we have, yes, ma'am, Miss Jenna.
Yes.
We have anyone in the audience scared to speak for it or against it? Seeing none, Jenna, would you explain this?
So we're asking for, Daniels Welding is requesting space located at the Roswell Air Center consisting of 1,462 square feet, more or less, of building number 81, and 16,404 square feet, more or less, of the fenced area surrounding building number 81 for operation of a welding shop. This is for a one-year term commencing October 1st, 2022, and ending September 30th, 2023. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as rent the sum of $3,289.50 annually for the building number 81, payable in 12 monthly installments of $274.13. And then the parcel around, the fenced area around building number 81, 1,640.40 payable in 12 monthly installments of $136.70.
Okay, are there any questions from the counselors? Seeing none, I'm sorry, Juan, okay. Councilman Orpressa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may be premature in asking these questions since Mr. Conco has indicated that the airport committee is going to be working real close with the airport staff. So please forgive me if I'm too premature in asking these questions. As part of the Air Center's team, in your opinion, what is your main objective in reference to Air Center properties?
My main objective is to aid in keeping the airport sustainable as it goes forward and taking care of the tenants.
Okay, is there a part in there that would say that you would try and keep the properties occupied as much as possible?
Absolutely, and we're currently at 75% or better of occupancy.
Okay. And I think I asked you this question at the legal committee. Who makes the determination of what to charge per square foot?
The current determination is being made by classifications of buildings, whether they're warehouse and the condition of the building and what amenities are available to the tenants in those buildings. If it's temperature controlled, if it has electricity, if it's a water hose bib, if there's a bathroom, those are the differentiations of our classifications.
And to your knowledge, and I'm going to say to your knowledge because I know you're probably the one out there right now. Has any staff member from the Air Center ever received any written policy and/or directives from any current or previous city administrators, city council as a whole, or individual councilors, or the mayor, suggesting that Air Center properties should only be leased to companies that are considered aeronautics or have a connection to the airplane industry?
I have no direct knowledge of that. Nobody's ever said anything or given me a policy.
Okay. I've heard in more than one occasion that one of the reasons that the leases are being looked at the airport to try and get them up to date, so to speak, is that one of the reasons is due to the FAA requiring that a fair market value be charged for properties at the Air Center. Is that correct?
We have federal grant assurances that we have to satisfy that require us to have a specific complexity or diversification of non-aeronautical and commercial aeronautical. As an air center, we are required to give preference to the commercial aeronautical businesses or any business supporting aeronautical first. I guess I would just say classify as higher than just a standard non-aeronautical business.
But do they have a say-so as to what the fair market value should be?
The FAA won't set a fair market value. The fair market value can be, there's two different ways to be able to evaluate them. One is compensatory, and the other is a residual. So I believe that's the correct term. But that is what we are based on from the Federal Aviation to work through. But I would defer to my leadership to give me counsel on how to answer that question a little bit better.
No, Council, I think Jenna did a nice job of answering that. The other challenge that they have is that when they base it on the classifications of who's out at the Air Center. So FAA looks at the aeronautical first and then the non-aeronautical second. And if there's if within the classifications, you have to assure that all the companies within that classification are treated equally within the whole scope of the lease process. And so, when you look at non-aeronautical, and in the FAA's mind, it is to protect the Air Center for the use of aviation services. And so that's where that comes from with the aviation and the aeronautical and the non-aeronautical pieces of the FAA of how they look at that. I will say that FAA will not set what the fair market rate is, but they're happy to tell us when it's not. And I hate to say it that way, but that is what they will come back and say, we believe that you're treating this company differently than you are treating this company within the same classification. And that's where the standards that Jenna uses in order to establish those rates are all based upon the condition of the building, the amenities that are utilized and all of that. So hopefully that helps answer that a little bit farther as well too.
Okay, so my question would be, does the FAA, when a lease is negotiated, do you have to pass it through the FAA for approval, or how does the FAA determine it is or is not?
We have an inspection that comes annually to verify from our compliance officer, and they will do a sampling of our leases.
So very similar to how we handle our financial audit. They'll come out once a year and they will pull a sampling of them and they will compare them to assure that the classifications and all of our justification criteria are met within that structure.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Opresa, one of this whole subject matter that you're talking about on the FAA, their approval, their 10 cents a square foot, that is something that we have all kind of put together, and having the Airport Advisory Committee look at and evaluate that whole system so we can work up with a way to make sure we satisfy the FAA requirements about what's a fair market value for the properties that we lease out there. And that's one of the things that airport committee we're trying to put them in charge of.
And I guess that's the reason that I said I might be asking premature questions. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council Lady Halverson.
You mentioned our compliance officer.
Yeah.
Who is our compliance officer?
Richard Middleton is our current compliance officer. We met with him in February for our inspection this year.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if we can, then we'll have, clerk will call the roll on approving,
You can do a voice vote.
or you can do a voice vote. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Second, or opposed? None. By 10 in the affirmative and none in the negative. It's approved. Okay, next we have item 21. Enter into a lease for bunkers 1136 and 1142. Councilman Hildebrand.
Item
Oh,
20.
okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me, authorize Aerosale the lease to enter into building number 118. Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we make a motion to authorize Aerosale to enter into a lease in building number 118 at the airport.
We have a motion and a second by Councilman Arnold. Okay. So we have a motion. Jenna, would you care to
Yes, AirSale Inc. is requesting a lease for building number 118 consisting of 20,000 square feet, more or less, located at the Roswell Air Center for the storage of commercial aircraft engines and their component parts. The term will be commencing on October 1st, 2022 through September 30th of 2027. This is a 5-year lease. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as a rent the sum of $88,200 annually, payable in 12 monthly installments of $7,350 the first year of the lease. Thereafter, the rent will increase annually by CPI, all cities average, or 3%, whichever is greater, rounded to the nearest dollar.
Do we have any questions? Councilman Foster?
That picture answered my question. I was trying to get a scope of where it was. It's not one of the twin buildings, it's one next to it, so, thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Councilman Hildebrand?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to bring it to the attention of the rest of this council that when we reviewed this lease in legal, even though it's a 5-year lease, if you will look on page number 222, item number 30, which is termination. This lease may be terminated by either party by giving 180-day written notice. So in reality, this is not a 5-year lease. And so the question was brought up at legal, and when these leases get to legal, they've already been negotiated. So we're trying to work through the airport commission with staff so that there is some understanding of these termination clauses that are in there, because there's no monetary value given to the termination. So just so this full council knows that this is really not a 5-year lease. The city can remove itself at 180 days if it wish, and AirSale can remove themselves in 180 days notice. So these are the kind of things that we've asked staff to get some guidance so that in the future these things are looked at in a little different method. So, and all staff is doing is asking for guidance, and they'll administer whatever the guidance needs to be. So I just want to make, and every one of these is different. One of them was a 30-day, one's a 180-day, and I can't remember what the other one was, the termination clause, but that, just want to make the rest of this council aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hildebrand. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing item 20, the building lease for building number 118. Motion was made by Councilman Hildebrand, seconded by Councilman Arnold. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so that is passed. I've had a request for a 10-minute break. Is that agreeable with everyone? All right, we'll take a 10-minute break. We have about 12 items left after this. So.
I thought we'd be out of here by 8:30.
This committee recommended 4-0.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I would have one question, and that was, do we need a provision in this lease to where if those have ammunition stored in them, that if TSA or somebody doesn't like it, they can be removed quickly or whatever, if it causes a problem with TSA?
There should be no conflict with TSA. It is outside of the airport operations area.
Okay, I just wondered because I could see the planes over there, that's why, in the picture. Okay. All right. Any further questions? Seeing none, the clerk will call, or all those in favor, signify passing a lease to Hvac for bunkers 1136 and 1142, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, just by a vote of 9, oh, she's back, okay. 9, 10 in the affirmative, none in the negative, it's duly passed. Item 22, Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we authorize North American Aerospace Industries Corporation to enter a lease for parcel of airport operations area land.
You have a motion by Councilman Hildebrand. And the second by Councilman Arnold. I think that was right.
So North American Aerospace Industries is a new tenant requesting a space located at the Roswell Air Center consisting of 5 acres, 217,800 square feet, more or less, of the airport operations area. The land will be used for dismantling transitional aircraft and ground servicing equipment storage. This company is a recycling firm, so their claim is that they can recycle up to 90% of an aircraft, even up to 100%. They have been successful. They recycle the materials by breaking them down and turning them into 3D printing materials. And then they also make handbags, backpacks, and tennis shoes out of the fabrics that are left in the aircraft. They are looking to be in the lease for a 5-year term. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord as their rent sum of $21,785 and 12 monthly payments of $1,815 for the first year. Thereafter, rent will increase annually by CPI or 3%, whichever is greater.
Thank you. Questions from members of the committee? Councilman Alverson.
Are they going to use this as a manufacturing plant too, or is this just a dismantling of the aircraft?
They are wading into the water, so to speak. They're going to go ahead and start with us on this 5-acre parcel, and then they will look at where they're going to go next. They have had contact with a couple of the other manufacturers on the air center to collaborate with, and have even had a meeting with one of our local upholstery seamstresses as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of passing item 22 to authorize the North American Aerospace Industries Corporation to lease a parcel of land at the airport, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by a vote of 10 in the affirmative, none in the negative, item 22 is duly passed. Next, we have item 23, to authorize Honeywell, a GSA contractor, to upgrade the HVAC system, building 500 on 47 Gail Harris Street. Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an upgrade of the, we're asking for more money to upgrade the HVAC system. So I now move that we authorize Honeywell International to repair and upgrade the HVAC system in Building 500 located at 47 Gale Harris Street. This is the ILEA building.
Second.
Who seconded it? Foster. Okay, we have a motion. Juan, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilors. So I will be addressing 23 and 24 since they're all related. But in regards to the first item, again, pursuant to our city policy, anything that's over 60,000 requires city council action for approval. So this item is before you because this is under the lease agreement with ILEA. It does require that we make some improvements to the facility. The first item is for improvements to the HVAC unit. And we are using a Honeywell GSA agreement to improve new chiller and to replace the, proposing for a new chiller to replace the existing chiller. 3 of the 4 compressors on the chiller have failed, and the unit is operating at 25% capacity. They did not find any communication devices from the chiller to the building automation system, so this will be another improvement to provide a BACnet communication card, which will be included with the new chiller and connected to the building automation system. Honeywell submitted 2 proposals. As I mentioned, this is tied to 23 and 24 for the HVAC, which is a proposal for $554,800. You will see there, and this is just a snippet of what the proposal is. You will see what it also is for the fire alarm system of $166,400 for a total of $721,000. The Finance Committee is recommending approval of this item 4-0. And again, this is a ratification because of the need to be able to execute the agreement so that we don't lose the opportunity of the pricing. We did have the agreement executed by the mayor, and we're bringing it to you for approval and also ratification to proceed forward. And with that, Mr. Mayor and councilors, I will stand for any questions.
Are there any questions as to item 23 on the upgrades to the heat HVAC system on the ILEA building? There's no questions. All those in favor of voting for item 23, which is to upgrade to Honeywell, to provide a contract to Honeywell to upgrade the HVAC system for Building 500 on 47 Gale Harris Drive, signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, by a vote of 10 in the affirmative and none in the negative, it is duly passed. Item 24, Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is authorized Honeywell International to repair and upgrade the fire alarm system in the same building.
We have a motion by Councilman Corn and a second by Councilman Foster. I think we've already had the discussion. Is there any other questions? Seeing no questions from councilman, on a motion, I would ask, I ask all members to signify by voting yes in the affirmative to approve Honeywell as a general service contractor to upgrade the fire alarm system in Building 500, the same on 47 Gale Harris Drive. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, there was one no.
No.
It was an aye.
It was an aye?
I think that it takes her a little longer to get through the response.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, well, she's voted, okay. So by a vote of 10 in the affirmative and none in the negative, item 24 is duly passed the council. Next, we have item 25, and this is for a change order to $36,542 for the air, to Faith Group for the Air Center Facility Survey. Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an increase, a change order for $36,542 for the Faith Group for the Roswell Air Center facility survey. I so move its adoption.
We have a second? Councilman Foster seconds. Okay. Juan, would you
Yes,
please
thank you,
explain?
Mr. Mayor and councilors. So Faith Group LLC is assisting the airport in preparing a revised airport security program. A requirement of the program requires a facility survey, which the airport does not have an accurate or complete set. This survey is required for completion of this ASP, also is required by TSA. This request is for an approval of an additional amount to Phase 1 of $36,542 for Faith Group to provide the facility survey as required. Mr. Mayor, with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the councilmen? Okay, seeing no questions, we have a motion to approve $36,052 to Faith Group for an Air Center facility survey. There's a motion by Councilman Corn, seconded by Councilman Foster. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. All those opposed? None. So by a vote of 10 in the affirmative, none in the negative, item 25 has passed. Next, we have the approve the warehouse inventory purchasing authorization request. Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, we've got a warehouse that has lots of stuff in it that the city uses. I would move that we approve this authorization for $1,475,000. It's not going to be spent all immediately. It's as the inventory gets drawn down, things need to be replaced. I would like to also report to you and the city council that during the process of getting everything computerized so they can keep up with what inventory they have on hand, they promised me that they're going to get us a copy of that inventory for our next finance meeting, hopefully.
Yes.
And also give us an idea of what they're running short on. I understand that we're short on water meters at this time, and we probably need to get those probably ordered and spend the money for those. So it's kind of a moving target as the various departments in the city draws down these material, it gets billed back to their department line items. So we're anxious to see how all this works with the new system in place, and with that, if I can get a second for my motion to approve. Got a second? Mr. Glenn, I'm sure, will give us a little more detail.
Okay. Mr. Glenn.
So this is a spending authorization for our invoices that are over the $60,000. So we don't have to come back to you each time that we need to do this. We'd still draw a purchase order like any other time. We're asking for our purchase authorization to not exceed the list that was provided for Baker Utility Supply, Core and Main, Resource Wise, and Ferguson Waterworks. Anything else would come back to you guys. We did talk about in the Finance Committee that there still needs to be some reporting to the council, so we will report probably monthly, just a written report on those four suppliers, what we spent with this authorization that we're doing. And then Ms. Davies will be our kind of our check and balance, like she always is on this kind of stuff. One of the things that I did present at the Finance Committee meeting is that we were going to do this in $50,000 increments. We thought that was a really good idea until we got our first two quotes. The water meters, we have one for Resource Wise, and it came in at $105,000, and one for new meter pits with Core and Main at $162,000. But that would be part of this authorization. The meter pits, we have plenty in stock now. We got notification from them that we're 40 to 60 weeks out on any new stuff. So that's putting it into next year, well into next year. So we need to, if we get the order in now, we can start, we'll at least get in line.
These are meter pits that go,
That's what the meter goes inside, down in the ground.
I guess there's no rush to build any new houses then, not anything more than 20.
I have plenty in stock right now. We're okay. I just don't want to, wait till, 30 days out and go, oh, I wish I would have ordered them, 8 months ago. And the supply chain issues right now for our stuff is just incredible. We have chances once in a while to buy stuff from our suppliers. They will call us up and say, hey, this contractor backed out of an order. I have this stuff on the floor. If you can buy it right now, it's yours. So that's why we need to be able to move on some of this stuff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councilman Perry.
Two things. Number one, upon the confirmation for ordering stuff now, will we pay on what it costs today, or pay on what it costs in 40 to 60 weeks?
These four suppliers that we use, they guarantee their price.
Okay.
So it's the price that they quote is what we pay.
All right. So that's one reason I think we need to jump into this, because I certainly see, not being political, but whoever wins in these midterm elections nationwide, we could very well see a trend that could be concerning. The other thing that I would say is this is not a new thing, just for those with the council. We've done this before when we had such a shortage on being able to get vehicles for different things. By the time it takes to go through a committee and then to council to get the approval and then to make the order, the dealership who had the vehicles, they've already been sold, and they probably already got 7,000 miles on each of those vehicles by the time we can get to them. So pre-approving this kind of stuff is unfortunately a new way we're probably going to have to start doing business.
I just think it's important, though, that we keep you guys aware of how we use the authority that you've given us.
Oh, I don't disagree.
So that'll be a big thing. And then the Finance Committee, we will be doing a presentation on the warehouse itself, how it's run, and how things happen there. If the Finance Committee chooses, I'll bring it on the road and bring it to you guys at one of the next council meetings. Because it's kind of just this little thing that sits over there and nobody knows about.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to adopt item 26 and approve the warehouse inventory purchasing authorization. Motion by Councilman Corn, seconded by Councilman Foster. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? No. Okay, so we have 10 in the affirmative and none in the negative, so item 26 is duly passed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have approved the award of ITB 23-002 on the South Virginia Park project to include the base bid and alternative to Constructors, Inc. in the amount of $571,000, which includes gross receipts tax. Councilman Perry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to pull it up here in my. I make a motion that we approve the awarding of ITB 23-002 for the South Virginia Park project, which is Chisholm Park, to include the base bid and additive alternative.
Second.
Okay, we ready to start over? Well, I mean, we have a motion on the floor to approve.
Adding the alternate to constructors in the amount of $571,884.76, which includes GRT.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Foster. Okay, do we have questions from members of the council? Councilman Halverson.
You stated you're going to need an additional 205,000 of additional funding?
Okay, so let me kind of go everything one time. And you guys already gave us, if you look at your abstract, the legislative grant balance is $340,000, $340,842.44. When I went to council, I believe in June, you added $204,158. The recommendation for the base bid plus alternate number 2 additive is the $571,000 that I'm asking for, which will require another $26,884.76 to be added to what you've already given me, about $545,000. Now, as you look at what on your screen right now, just to refresh your memory, that's the layout for the South Virginia Park. The teal that you see going around, or the turquoise, that's additive alternate number 1, which we were going to be adding to the sidewalk, and then crossing it on the east side to tie the other sidewalk from Keith Street to Onyx Street. That was the trail, because at the public hearing meeting that we had a year ago in October, they wanted a trail as one of the amenities for this park. Additive alternate number 2, which I'm recommending, is the basketball court, which is in the pink or the mauve, whatever color you want to call that. So as you look at the bids, to do it all was way over where we're at, so I made the decision, recommendation to infrastructure to agree with it 4-0, that we would do the base bid and the basketball court, which is alternate number 2. And based on the money that I have to date, $545,000, I need another $26,884.76 to be able to award the bid to constructors for the base bid and alternate number 2. As far as the possible funding source, that was recommended by Councilor Foster to look into the park improvement fee. That has been looked into, and finance is here to verify it, but I believe there's a balance of $254,000 in the park improvement fee. Just to give you an idea of the park improvement fee, when somebody builds a house, you pay so much frontage for sewer, so much frontage for water, and $4 a linear foot for the park. So that's the recommendation that we're at. I do have a caveat or postscript that I want to bring up. It's not part of you're voting on right now, but just to give you guys a heads up, Mr. Burris advised me on Monday that we did not have the money to install the park equipment. We have the equipment, but we don't have that. We got I guess there was a quote a year ago, it was $12,000. Current quote is $16,723.17, which hopefully, when it's time to ask for the PO, they could also be pulled from the park improvement fee. And with that, I'll stand for any questions. And Council Halverson, did I answer your question?
So my question is, could we save, I guess, an additional 42,000 is what you need, right? The 16,000 plus.
For the council tonight, because it's on the agenda, I can only ask for the $26,884.76.
Can we save that? Because Keith Street and Onyx Street already have 4-foot sidewalks.
That is correct.
Why do those need to be 8-foot? Can we save that in concrete just by keeping the existing sidewalks?
Well, we're going to keep the existing sidewalk.
I know, but you're adding another 4 feet and just.
No, that's base bid, alternate base bid 1. That's not part of the recommendation.
That's not part, okay.
Yes, ma'am. The recommendation is the park that you see in the green, that includes the irrigation system, the grading, that kind of stuff, and the basketball court. It'll also include the parking area, which will be gravel parking, but we will have an ADA area, and we do have sidewalk along next to the parking lot, and ADA enhancements.
Okay, so the 4-foot addition is not included?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Nor the 8-foot
On the
connecting
alley?
them
Yeah.
going south to north.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Nahart, you have future parking area. What do you, that is not in your quote right now, correct?
That is correct.
So what are you going to do there with that, quote, future parking area? Is that just going to be dirt or?
What we're gonna do, we're gonna pour boy it with the millings, that we have millings available from our milling projects that we did this year. So it's gonna look like, similar to Stiles Field,
Okay.
similar to, Cielo Grande. We'll put the millings in, we'll do oil emulsion on top of that. But, for right now, that's not part of the bid. We'll do that as part of our regular maintenance when we go touch up Stiles Field and we touch up, Cielo Grande.
Does the city do that, or we have to hire an outside?
No, we do that ourselves.
So that's.
And all the millings that we have are already at our crusher site.
Okay, thank you. You answered that question. Are you asking also now for the other additional, or you want to?
Well, I want to give you a heads up.
Date?
Under the rules of the agenda, I cannot ask for it, but I want to give you guys a heads up, because as I understand that, just so when the PO goes in, that it's on 16,000, but we're recommending that it also come from the park improvement fee. And that would be to AK Sales, to install the playground equipment. The playground equipment was bought with the grant, and part of this project, we'll do the grading and the prep work, and then the AK Sales will come in and actually install it. The reason Parks wants to do that is because they are a certified installer and helps with liability for the future.
AK Sales is a certified installer.
Yeah. Yeah. Just see. So does this motion needs to be amended? It's got to be amended, if I recall, but I have one question. Mr. Neeb, you and I have had discussion about the development fee. And when are we going to see a new look at that? Because I don't know when that was last reviewed. Are these 1962 or 1982 or 2002? The last time we've looked at the developer fee, because $6 is not very much. Going into that permanent fund.
Counselor, we can be ready very quickly for that conversation. You and I had discussed it, I think, about 60 days ago.
Yeah.
And so we've been preparing that information so that we can have a full conversation on establishing these development fees or updating them, whichever is proper. So I'll be ready when you guys are.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
So I'm going to make a motion that, to amend the original motion, that the additional funds of $26,884.76 come out of the park improvement. I guess that's a proper term, park improvement fund?
Yeah. Yeah, park improvement fee, line item.
Yeah.
Okay, we have additional motion. You know, it can amend the original motion. Is there any objection to including that fee in the original motion?
The question I have is, are we just doing the 26, or are we going to add the 16? Because they can't ask for it, but we can.
We can add it right
We can
now.
add it.
We can add it right now.
So that's what I,
That's the motion.
no, he said 26. That's the original 26 that they were asking. Did- So that would be the 40,
So they can get this stuff done.
right. So,
Okay, so I'd like to change my motion. And maybe you want to change it all the way
or
back
do
to the
you
beginning.
want to just do it as a friendly amendment?
Do it as a friendly.
There's a friendly amendment.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Are you-
To include,
The exact number is $16,723.17.
so moved.
And we just gave a copy to Finance Director Janey.
I'm open
Councilman
to
Perry,
it as a
would you
friendly.
accept that as a friendly amendment to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would accept that as a friendly amendment to the
Councilman
original.
Foster, will you accept that?
Yes.
So they would have that then as to have the appropriate fees
Mhm.
added into that, the 16,000. If that's, does the clerk have that straight? Everybody happy? Any further, Councilman Foster, anything else?
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to say, just to get some kind of feeling on this, and I was trying to remember when I sat down with you, Jim, and we figured out we had 192 or 194,000 in that account. So it's grown almost 60,000 in the last 9 months. I mean, the last time we looked at it, I think
192,000 change.
it was 192,000, and now it's sitting at 250. So we've gained close to 60. So that's healthy. We're not even taking the what we've gained in the last year. So
And as a point of information, so this is done, we just freshened up our tree spade, and I'll be planting multiple trees in this park, so $500 a pop if you buy them. So it's gonna offset that portion of the project also. So we're doing good.
Okay, thank you.
And the other statement I'd make is we also, for the basketball court, we already have a $500 donation to help with it. And so, I mean, so there's other funds coming into it, but it's appreciative. The kids in this area they've actually asked me last week about it. So I yield.
Any further comments? I might just point out on the basketball court, before you put the court like that, if you turn it around one way or the other so you can make a full-length basketball court, have two goals rather than having one that's, where you can have a full-length court, might make more sense. If you just look at it and see, you can have the other half of the court later if you have enough kids to play basketball.
I see what you're saying.
The other, no further questions. So, now, this is the part where we went and bought the playground equipment like 4 months ago, 5 months ago.
At least, yes, sir. Yes, Mayor.
And why did we do that?
Does that guarantee the price at that point?
Did you check with other local people here?
We do, but we bought the playground from one company, and then we use AK Sales for the install.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that, if the difference is that if you buy that equipment, and if you don't have usually on that playground equipment, if you buy it from somebody local, they'll put it in and work all that, then you have a warranty for sure. Now, if AK Sales decides they don't want to bid that, or it allows you to bid whatever price you put in there
Right.
to install it, then where are you?
Well,
If you buy the equipment from them, I mean, this is what's happened on this, I don't think we got a fair bid price. And so to me, I think we ought to, if we have a local company here that sells equipment, I think we ought to look at them and give them an opportunity to bid. And we didn't do that, I don't think, in this case. And
Well, I agree with you. We can in the future. This was under, I think, 60,000, and this matches the other playgrounds we've been putting in. So we need parts, they all match. But I'd be more than happy next go-around to take a look at that, because I've got one here in Cahoon's going to have to be replaced pretty quick.
well, it's just looking, maybe AK Sales is just a business that we have in this community.
Yeah.
And it has
We like to
It's a
support local
big business.
business,
They
you
got-
know that.
a whole bunch, millions and millions of dollars of sales. And the schools all buy their equipment from us and so, or from them. So all I'm saying is that, can we shop local?
Absolutely.
And, to me, I find that, when we don't give them an opportunity, I find that wrong to do that to our own local people. So. Okay, any further questions? Okay, and I just say that because I've seen them install, Carpenter Park was installed by AK Sales, and, because I was driving by and looked one time, and it made me look because the playground equipment was from somebody else.
It is.
So-
That's Burke Playground Equipment. They do the schools. AK Sales just did that new school
So,
for Goddard over there.
okay. All right, so we have let's see, what number are we on here? To approve 27, I have a motion on the floor by Councilman Perry, seconded by Councilman Foster, as amended, to increase the purchase, the price to $16,000, I
Sorry,
believe
Mayor?
is what it was.
You'll need to do a vote for the amendment and then go back to do the original vote as amended,
Oh, we
if
did
it
it as a
passes.
friendly amendment.
With the original as an amendment. They did a friendly amendment to the amendment.
So you have 26,000 out of the park fund plus another 16,000. So the friendly amendment that we adopted would have the 2632, that'd be $42,000 out of the park fund, would include, that was my understanding of what this amendment did. So you had the 16 and the 26 made 42,000, give or change the numbers.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor. And there may be some confusion. We've not done a whole lot of friendly amendments in the past, but because I made the original motion and Counselor Foster made the second, when the discussion was brought up by Counselor Hildebrandt, the determination was made that I accepted that, and that becomes part of the original motion and the original second.
Which the second agreed, everybody agreed. So, all those in favor of adopting ITB 23-002 South Virginia Park Project as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the is it Chisholm Park? Park it, okay, South Virginia Park project has been approved by the council.
Thank you, council.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have item 28, to approve the new gen strategies and solutions for solid waste costs for service study by Councilman Corn. And we have a motion. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I need to change the word approved to accept. The
Oh,
new
that's right,
gen
accept.
strategy and solution solid waste cost of service study. Also, in the narrative that we have, that I assume is on the website, where it says implement the recommendation for the rate change, that's not part of this motion. The rate change, if it's adopted, has to go through the regular committee process to be accepted at a later date. This is just the exception to accept the study.
Second.
We have a motion for the new generation by Councilman Corn, seconded by Councilman Perry. And Abraham, would you like to go through it with us?
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have Dave Yankee actually online, I hope. He's going to kind of go through like a high-level overview of the study they conducted for the Solid Waste Department. Originally, the Solid Waste Department and the Water Department together, we requested the study. The study was started with both of us. Water kind of dropped off at a certain point. There was a lot of data that had to collect and get together. Luckily, solid waste, we had a lot of that stuff already taken care of ahead of it. So we stopped, water stopped at about 25% when we started. From there, we continued with the solid waste study all the way until the end, and we got it completed. The cost of the study was about $110,000. I just want to put that on the record. And if Dave is on the phone, he can give you an overview.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
That's a little low, Dave.
All right, hold on a sec here.
There you go. We're good.
Okay.
Take it away.
And I apologize if I don't have good lighting. I'm at a conference and I'm in my hotel room. So, you have the PowerPoint there that I can just tell when to advance?
Yes. We're ready.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Next slide, please. Next slide. There you go. Thank you. Real quick for you folks, New Gen, just so you know who we are, we're a 52-person consulting firm. All we focus on is the conduct of cost of service and rate design studies for water, solid waste, and electric utilities, operational reviews, things like that. Next slide. Just so you understand my background and why I'm doing this study, conducting this study, I have 30 years of experience in the conduct of solid waste cost service studies, as well as water and wastewater, but specifically solid waste cost service and rate design studies. It's kind of my meat and potatoes. That's the primary thing I focus on. I'm actually here at a conference in Texas, speaking on sample studies we've done. Next slide. So what we've been asked to do for the city of Roswell in conducting the solid waste cost service study, the first thing we did was develop a test year, which is basically starting with your fiscal year budget for the solid waste utility. We then develop a revenue requirement. I'll explain that in a second, but it's basically your budget with all your capital costs, whether it's cash or debt funded. We then allocate those costs to all their service categories so we know what each service you provide costs, whether it's residential garbage collection, roll-off collection, operating the landfill, etc. We identify the appropriate billing units, whether it's households, tons delivered, dumpsters, etc., to come up with the cost of service. Next slide. One of the things I want to point out, there are some notable items in fiscal year 21 and 2021 and 2022 that are major capital expenditures. They're normal capital expenditures for a solid waste utility. And one of the things we did, we spent a lot of time with Abraham and his folks looking at what their fleet was, the age. We do a lot of these studies so we know what the typical range is for a life of, say, an automated side loader or a rear loader, roll-off truck, etc. So we've budgeted, and through a lot of conversations in the capital improvement plan, vehicle replacement, about $700 grand a year. Capital infrastructure at the landfills, about $250,000 a year. Capital equipment replacement at the landfill, that's things like water tank trucks, compactors, etc. Also setting aside money for closure, post-closure care costs. Take care of the landfill after it's closed. And then cell construction, setting aside cash so as you go forward you're able to put more cash towards the funding of cells. And then you have the current debt issue and the transfer to the general fund. Those are some of your major items. Next slide, please. So what is a revenue requirement? Again, it's very simply all your operating and maintenance expenses. That's your labor costs, benefits, fuel for the trucks, maintenance for the vehicles, supplies, and then vehicle replacement, all the rolling stock I was just talking about, and capital improvement projects, things at the landfill infrastructure. That all adds up to your annual revenue requirement that you have to recover then through your rates, your user fees. Next slide. So bottom line, when you put this all together, the revenue requirement, and we started this project a while back, but basically we're into fiscal year 2023, so I'll start there. Bottom line, it costs about $9.2 million to fund your solid waste operations. That's everything, collection, operating the landfill, etc. That's expected to grow modestly by about another $250,000 to about $9.5 million in 2024, and then up another couple $100,000 to 9.7, and then just under $10 million in 2026. Next slide. So what we're putting forth here are a series of recommendations, rate recommendations. You're currently at $17.75 per month per household. We're recommending that rate increase be raised in fiscal year 2023, January 1st of 2023, so in a couple months,
to $22.50. And then in fiscal year 2025, at the beginning of the fiscal year, which would be July 1, 2024, an additional $1.50 per month per household. I know rate increases are never popular. I will just tell you that very few of our clients have residential rates that are under $20 per month per household. So that you're still at this level, you know, that's great, but you've got these capital projects you have to catch up on. So even looking at rates being $24 in another basically 3-4 years, we have clients right now that are in the mid to upper 20s and even over $30 per month per household. So your rates are in really good shape. Next slide. Also, with regard to your 300-gallon containers, we're recommending those be adjusted. Currently, they're at $27.22 per month per household or per container, and we're recommending they be increased to $34.50 again January 1st. And then at FY 2024, July 1st, another couple dollars, $2.30. With regard to your dumpsters, your commercial dumpsters are they're significantly under recovering. When I look at the rates that you charge, when you compare with other cities, and again, there's always variables, you have to be careful comparing one city to another. But when I look at your dumpster rates, they are very low compared to what most cities are charging, and that's one of the reasons you're losing money on them. So we need some increases there to get those back on track. So again, similar to the 300-gallon container where we recommended about a 27% increase, we're recommending the same for the 3-yard and then a 12% increase annually thereafter. Next. And then finally, with regard to your roll-off containers, we're recommending the rates be raised modestly from $231.50 per pull to $245, and then they're up $10 per year. So ultimately, they're at $275. I will tell you, those are still very competitive with the market in Roswell. Finally, your landfill. What we're recommending are increases in your gate rate on a per ton basis. So what you charge for the customers that come across that do not have contractual rates, recommending those rates be increased from the current $42.25 to $45 in FY 2023, and then up another $2.25 per ton, $2.75 more in 2025, and then another $2.50. You can see also the increases on the contractual customers. Those are listed below. Those are higher. More of that is waste that is coming from outside the city. You operate the landfill. You take significant risk in operating landfills. I was just on a call earlier this week with a client we were working with in Wisconsin, and they're raising their rates so they can over-recover and make a profit on the landfill because they take the risk of providing support, and so do you. So we're recommending that those rates be raised accordingly. Next slide, and then this will be my final slide, and I'll open it for questions. If those rate recommendations are implemented, as you can see, in fiscal year 2023, which you're already a couple months into, you're under recovering about $1.1 million per year. You can see, though, over time, by fiscal year 2024, you're only under recovering $161,000. By fiscal year 2025, you're over recovering $300,000, and then finally in FY 2026, you're over recovering $417,000. So the utility does get back to solid financial footing. I would recommend these rate increases. They're competitive with what we see for other clients and the marketplace, and I'll be glad to take any questions you have.
Mayor, Council, I can stand by for any questions. Dave, if we can ask, tailor our questions for Dave while he's on the phone, while he's out of town. At that point, I can cover any of the questions if I can.
So first, I'd like to actually understand something. I've seen this presentation for 3 times now. Am I to assume that by accepting it and not approving it, we're going to continue to move it out? What's next? General services and then legal? So that's, what, another month? Because currently, Mr. Eintema, correct me if I'm not right here, we're already behind on CPI, and I'm not sure as to why we're procrastinating. Mr. Knipp, can you help me with that?
I can help with that. Yeah, one of the other parts of this is that every July, starting in 2020, there was supposed to be a CPI adjustment of the rates for solid waste, and it would have triggered, I think 2021 would have been the first one.
Yes.
Because it was enacted in August of 2020, and then it would have taken effect in July of 2021 for the cost of living adjustment. It was not applied to the utility bills at that time. So the challenge we have, if we would have enacted the cost of living adjustment, it would have changed the numbers that would have been necessary in the rate study. And so we have to now consider whether or not we utilize just the rate increase itself, or we enact the previous cost of living adjustments that was missed in order to help make up that difference. And that's where we're at, and that's the challenge we have. So the request of, and I believe that's where, with the acceptance of this study, we say we agree with what the information is. Now let's go back and correct or go whichever direction. I think it was Councilor Foster in the finance meeting had talked about one or the other being necessary in order to move forward. And I think he had suggested, and I think Mayor Jennings was there as well too, and mentioned as well about doing the rate adjustment is more important, and we go back and we look at whether or not the cost of living adjustment is even necessary at this time. I guess that's my background on it from the conversations that we had at the Finance Committee meeting.
I think my issue is the lack of compliance. So I understand what you're saying, but at every day we're out of compliance, and I'm not even sure what that means for us. Can you answer that, Mr. Eintema?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Madam Councilor. So the ordinance is clear on its face. It shall be. It's automatic. It is a violation of law to not do it presently. From what I recall, and is Dave still on the line?
Yes, Dave, you still on there?
Right. If we were to come in compliance tomorrow, that would only mitigate losses for this year, because if I've read your study correctly, this operating year, even with the increases, is going to have something like $800 or $1 million of negative. Is that correct?
That's right. We're transitioning to try to minimize rate shock. Yes, that's correct.
So I guess I'm not sorry to make you do this quickly, but let's just throw out a number. If we were to increase the rate to about $21, which is more or less where we're supposed to be with proper CPI increases, would we then be still in the negative?
Yes, because we're recommending that January 1st, you go to $22.50. So if you go to $21, that's $1.50 less than that. And so, Abraham, sorry to put you on the spot. How many households do you have again? Because I forget that number. Is it about 30,000 or what is it?
Yeah, I want to say about 30,000. I think you're.
Yeah, that's right. So if it's 30,000, just rough numbers, so that'd be about $45,000 a month, be about $600,000 a year. So you'd be even 600 grand more underwater versus the 1.1 million.
Thank you.
So, Mayor,
Yes.
Council, just a note, if we would have implemented the CPI when the resolution passed, we would be at 2125 as of today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Abraham,
Yes,
could
sir.
you tell me what kind of effect this would have in the Clean and Safe program?
On which program?
The Clean and Safe, I think that's what we call it. The demolition program, I guess.
Yeah, if I could, I'll help answer that one as well, too. The Clean and Safe program actually comes out of the environmental tax. It does not come from these fees here, so I don't think there would be any impact on one or the other. So the Clean and Safe program is the demolition of buildings out there, and that comes from that environmental tax that has been established for that cleanup. So these rates are for your daily pickup through the trash service and everything else. So I don't think there would be any impact. It will not change that environmental tax that is associated with that. Does that help answer that?
Does that money, who budgets that money? Is it, where does that money come, what budget does it come out of?
The money is set into the solid waste fund, and it is managed by the code enforcement office. Yep, okay.
I'm having a hard time understanding that. It is set in the,
When the environmental tax, and it happened when you reestablished these taxes, and it happened before I got here, so it was about 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, you re-implemented the environmental tax. And I believe it enacted after I got here, probably about 5 years ago.
it was when Steve Polasek was hired.
I think that's when the changes occurred, and then the environmental tax, because it had to have specific uses on what it could be used for, it took an extra 6 months to get it enacted in the city of Roswell. And at the time that it was enacted, we placed it in the solid waste because most of this product ends up out there. And one of the things that was not happening correctly was, in my estimation as well too, and we corrected it with the environmental tax, was we would waive the tipping fees at the solid waste for this Clean and Safe program. And so we would essentially eat that cost as we would demo the buildings, and it would not end up on there. My belief is that when we tear down the building, we should take all of those costs, even the tipping fee cost, and at least keep the solid waste department whole. And that a Clean and Safe tax can be moved in there to cover that, and then we place the entire fee on that lien for that recollection if we can get it recollected.
Oh,
And so-
that's where I was going.
Yeah,
with
I
that one.
assume that's where you were headed, so.
Because when I talked to the last director out there, I was told that the city was losing like $1.4 million in waiving those fees, which would have an impact on what we're talking about now.
And Counselor, I would agree that that's, in my estimation, that was what was occurring through this program. And even if the Clean and Safe program is not just about the demos, it is also about somebody else tearing down a structure on their own.
Right.
And
yeah.
so we allow for that to happen, and that's where, rather than a waiver, because the cost of the service still has to be covered, we can use Clean and Safe to help with that as well too, and so that we keep the department whole. And that was the change that we made with the environmental tax, I know, since I've been here. But yeah, I would say that those estimates from our previous director are pretty accurate from where we were as to what the Clean and Safe waiver was costing us in the revenue for that department.
So does Mr. Abraham have authority to spend or to dig into that Clean and Safe monies for the landfill?
No, not directly.
But they're under his budget.
It's a line item in his budget. It is not the solid waste funding because it is set up for what the use of that tax is for. So we have to take care of what the purpose of the tax is for, which is clean and safe program. And there, and I believe that takes up.
I'm gonna take your word, because it's a little bit out of my,
Yeah, and I understand what you're asking and everything. We have other funds in other departments that are controlled by different entities as well too. Very similar to facilities, very similar to fleet, very similar to finance. There are certain line items that while it's in the budget in order to track because of the purpose or the use of those funds, it is actually managed by other departments within the structure of that.
okay,
That's the best way I can answer that one.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions?
Excuse me,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
Councilor Lopeza. I can read for you, it was ordinance 1716 that rededicated this 16th cent tax, and the dedication reads as follows. Revenue from the municipal environmental services gross receipt tax will be used for the acquisition, construction, operation, and maintenance of solid waste facilities, water facilities, wastewater facilities, sewer systems, and related facilities.
Thank you. Any further questions? When I look at this, when he has his proposed fees that are in there, you know, you have the revenue requirement and what we're getting. So we're getting $7,192,000, right? Now that is, and then he has revenue requirement is 8.9, so that's $1,000,008 we're short. Now, how much does a garbage truck cost?
Right now, we're looking at about $380,000 to $400,000.
$400,000 for a garbage truck. How old is your fleet?
Some of my oldest fleet, we're pushing about 7 years, 8 years. So the life of the trucks here, because they run so much and the way we run them, that lifespan is a lot shorter because
We do two pickups with everybody at least.
Yes,
week.
so instead of traditionally other cities, they run trash collection once a week. We run the entire city 330 miles. We do it twice a week.
Okay, twice a week. So what would you say, how many trucks do you have?
We have 8, that's our core of our fleet, and we have 3 spares that are over 10 years old.
Okay, so you have 8 trucks, so you really need to buy about 2 trucks a year. Is that fair?
Two trucks on average would be exceptional for the utility. But given the current budget, we can't budget for that. So also you got to take into account the maintenance as well. So the maintenance is a pretty significant cost as well, and also with our fuel costs rising, so a lot of our operational costs are rising when our revenue is pretty stagnant.
So if we do this, if we adopt this, according to his proposed study to do this, the $952, that'll get us at $22, but we're still gonna be, with all the old trucks we have, we're $1,000,008 short this year, or in 22. We're $1,000,001 short in 23 from the the money you need to do you have, in the money you're getting, the 9 or that you have, are the new truck replacements in there?
Yes, they did factor in some of the fleet, and I was kind of looking at the numbers as well. Some of the fleet is kind of low. So, for example, a compactor, a brand new compactor is $1.3 million. Like I said, the garbage truck is about $400,000. We just purchased a grapple truck, upwards of $300,000 as well. So yes, it would be a significant. We will be in a loss for a while, but if we spread out instead of getting the rate shock, we kind of spread it out a little bit longer. But that's
How much money was transferred out of your department?
So in the beginning slide, there's like 1.1 million. I think it's one of his significant factors here.
Yeah. This is about 1.5 million. It's slide 5. And if I can add real quick, it's very common when we work with utilities, again, just on the phone with this client earlier this week, they're very similar situation. You know, as I say, you don't get into these situations quickly, and you don't get out of them quickly, so you transition over time. So we are talking about dipping into reserves about $2 million to, you know, weather that and phase in the rate increases. But that's typically what the clients will do, is phase in the increases.
And, yeah, I understand that, I think, but where I'm trying to go with this is I'm sitting here looking that we're transferring monies in and out of this fund. We've been doing that. And, you know, to transfer monies out of these funds, that, as I see it according to the law, these are enterprise funds, and you can't transfer anything out of this fund unless you have 125% of the amount it takes to pay your bonds off. And I don't know, you know, it makes me wonder, how can we do that if our fund isn't making money, if we're losing $1.8 million a year and we still transferred money out of there? How do you do that? Now, we take the money that we take out of that fund, those enterprise funds, according to the law, you got to have 125% in there, or else you're breaking the law. Now, if we're taking that out and using it somewhere else, if we're using it to pay $1.4 million on the police department, okay, we can't do that the way I see this right now. I mean, what we're doing now is illegal. And we've been transferring money over to pay the policemen last year. And just say policemen, firemen, whatever other services we're doing. But we can't do that. It's not legal. How are we going to make up the money as we go down the road? Wherever the money's going, how are we going to replace that in the next year's budget? And just to me, I know there's a statute that says you got to have 125% of the money before you can transfer money out of there. But how are we going to make that money up?
If I can just add real quick, and I won't speak to the $1.5 million, is that the exact amount or what have you. It is common, just for your information, that there's a transfer from enterprise funds to the general fund for support services for human resources, purchasing, procurement, finance, you know, those types of things. Is it and cost studies are done on that. So whether it's a cost of $700,000, $1.5 million, I won't speak to that, but there's typically some transfer for those support services, just FYI.
It might be common, but I don't know, everybody might be doing it, but is it legal? I mean, that's my question for everybody to sit down and think about this, because when we start looking through this whole thing about the process of where we're going, and we're going into next year's budget and trying to figure out how we're doing what. To me, you can't legally take money out of here unless you got 125% of next year's payment. And I'm just saying it's not legal. Now, is there an obligation for doing that? And I'm just going to ask you, I don't know how many of us want to knowingly break the law, but I think that's been happening. And so everybody might be doing it. But that means, what I'm saying is that what it tells me is that if we're not going to break the law, we need to go to the legislature or somebody and tell them they have to give us either a bigger percentage of the pie for our size of community, or we've got to do something to work on paying that debt off. I mean, somewhere, the money's got to come from somewhere because legally it can't come from here. But I think our other water funds, our other enterprise funds are there. And then when I turn around and I look and say, okay, we've done all this, and when you go to some of these meetings, when you look around, I can't figure in my life of me how we can transfer $6.5 million out of the airport fund to fund ascent. I can't figure that out. It was all done by the other council. I'm not blaming any, I'm just saying those are the facts that we're dealt with now, as I see it. And so that's where I am. Everett, Tom, Dick, and Harry might be doing it, but I don't know that I want to knowingly break the law, and that's me. Okay, Councilman Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether this question's for Mr. Fuentes or for you, Abraham, but when I look at year 2, which is fiscal year 23, he's projecting that we are going to be under recovered by $1.1 million. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Do you agree with that with Mr. Fuentes? Do you agree with that,
Based on those
Mr.
numbers.
Need? Does everyone agree with that?
Based on those numbers.
So this $1.1 million, I just want to bring it to council's attention. This does not include a $2 million proposed transfer out of solid waste. So just so you all know, now you're faced with a $3.1 million deficit, potential deficit in solid waste. Is that correct, Mr. Fuentes?
Mr. Mayor and Councilor Hildebrand, I would ask Dave, in this number here for year 2, are you accounting for the transfer?
Yes, to be clear, that takes into account the $1.5 million
It's only
transfer.
1.5.
Right. But it's accounted for in this 1.1 million.
It's not accounting for the $2 million
No.
that's been
You
pledged,
are- You are
correct?
correct. The
Am I
$1.5
correct?
million is the transfer into the general fund and everything. I
That-
believe
that's-
that's what
yeah,
what
just
Dave
what
was
he was
saying. So the $2 million is the money that is being transferred for the use of the air center for that project. And I would say that this study came after that process.
So I'm correct in that we will
I
have a
would say you are correct, Counselor.
We will have a $3.1 million deficit in solid waste that I don't know how we're going to fill.
Yes, sir.
Because if you're going to fill it with rate increases, I'd ask Dave, tell me what does our rate increases have to be if we're going to cover that $2 million transfer out to get $3.1 million back into that fund?
And I would say also, Counselor, that I believe this study was done prior to the rollover of the equipment out of the, did that get added into it, or it came after? I thought the rollover. So we had a couple large purchases in the last year that are also not within those numbers. So your caution is appropriate for what this is. And so this is a continuous moving target until we get it rectified within there, and then, of course, dealing with the conditions that occur throughout the year.
Right, so.
Yes, you are correct.
So I'm correct in that number.
Yes,
And-
sir, I would say so.
And so this council is going to have some more discussion about where this is going to go and how we're going to cover $3.1 million that's under this study. I yield.
So just to clarify, just for example, for the layman out there, on year 1 alone, Ms. Davies, maybe you can answer this. Because we failed to follow the law and do the rate increases, how much, are we going to lose $1.7 million this year? Just in this year alone, and next year, like what Mr. Hellbrand said, it's going to be $3.1 million. Okay, I'm just confused as to why none of this happened. The rate increase, I mean. Why did the rate increases not happen?
Part of where the 3.1 million will be covered is the beginning balance, the cash balance.
that we carried over from last year to this year for solid waste and landfill is about 3.6 million. So it's calculated in this budget, the indirect cost of $1.5 million, and then the $2 million assent is also in here. And based on what our budget is that we're working on right now, we have an ending balance of about $1 million.
I'm not sure if that will cover everything. Our budget is solid, right? I mean,
Well,
for
and
that.
like you said, you're looking at about a $3.1 million deficit when you add that assent on there, but we carried over $3.6 million in cash from last year.
So we'll be whole.
Right.
We'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was part of the equation. It was not showing up here.
right.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor and Councilor, if I may, I just wanted to share just some information from my experience with other communities to the question on the transfers from enterprise funds. And I can tell you from all of the communities that I work with, and even in interacting with fellow finance officers throughout the state, it is a practice that almost every community that has a utility fund, an enterprise fund, whether it be water, wastewater, solid waste, electric, they transfer funds to support part of their services that the general fund provides. To the question of is it illegal, I can tell you that I worked for the city of TRC, Truth or Consequences, for almost 8 years. In that community, they have an electric division. That electric division is probably supporting the entire operation of the general fund. We would transfer about $2 million out of the electric division every year because the community is such that the general fund does not generate enough GRTs to support all of the services. And that has been occurring for as long as I can remember, probably 30-plus years. And I can tell you every year we get audited, every year, and that's not the issue. The issue is, that obviously the council made the policy decision to make that transfer. We've been, over the years, they tried to wean off of that transfer. But I wanted to address that because I've heard it so many times that it's illegal, and I can tell you, I've worked on different communities. None of the finance officers that oversee budgets, that make these transfers, have ever raised that issue. So I just bring that to you all's attention because, I just wanted to share that with you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Arnold.
I think the actual part that concerns me about the transfers is that they're not consistent. When you actually look back at the budget years, you have offset amounts, which does not actually allow our departments to properly budget, because it would be more convenient, I think it actually would be more transparent for me if there was a consistent amount of what you're going to actually transfer for administrative services. That's my problem with the way that it's actually going now. It's basically a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul, where you're short here, we'll just get it from sanitation. I have issues with that. Now, as far as the part of being illegal, I'm not sure that the mayor, what point he's making, but I will say I have concerns because I've read the statute. And yes, you do have to have 125% in there, but you're also not allowed to transfer to anything but the general fund. When you look at the enterprise funds for assent, they are going into a separate account. That is the part that is legally, possibly questionable. I just wanted to make that statement. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm just looking at and thinking down the road, we don't have an electric company. So, all I'm saying is that somewhere along the line, we need to go to the legislature or somewhere and address our method of funding here by an additional gross receipts tax, if that's the only thing we have, about asking to have them increase an additional gross receipts tax or something to get us to where we can be abiding by the law as we go through. And that's just me. I think that some of that could happen, but if it's happening with every municipality in the city, I know bigger cities don't have the problem like we do because they have so much more gross receipts tax. Oil communities don't have that because they have so much other gross receipts tax on they have higher gross receipts tax, and they also have corporates in their property tax that we don't have. And so those corporates pay an awful lot of taxes in Lee County and Eddy County. And so somewhere we need to come up, maybe it's Las Cruces and Alamogordo and all the rest of us that don't have those corporates. We need to come up with a method and a way to fix the funding of our community. And the reason why I bring it up is that the state is awash in money right now. And if we're ever going to try to get any money to fund us properly, it needs to be done now, not when the state is broke. And I mean, so to me, maybe you don't understand it, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't like to break the law. But if we need additional funding from the state, we need to get together and present our case in January. And I think that's something that has to be done, and we have to recognize it has to be done. And that's, I know we can keep transferring over here and there, but if it's costing us so much money to run a policeman, we need to make sure we can get general fund money to pay for the policeman, either from sales tax or where. And that's what I'm saying. I think we have to understand, nobody likes to raise taxes, but something's got to give to fund us properly. And so that's what I would hope we would see as we go through this.
Mr. Mayor, may I just step in just once a little bit here? I appreciate the conversation and everything, and I'm looking forward to further conversation on it. I do want to state that the funding from solid waste to Ascent is an intergovernmental loan, not a transfer. That means the money is to come back. So when we establish those funds to go out, they are meant to come back. That is different than the transfer from those enterprise funds to the general fund. That money does not come back in that way. It covers the cost of the services utilized by the utility from the general fund. So I just want to make sure that's clarified, but I would love to have a longer conversation on all of this. I appreciate all the interest in it.
But, Mr. Neeb, I can understand how it can be considered a loan, because we're going to get it back. But the problem I see
Yes,
is
sir.
we don't have the money to pay for the trash trucks that we need now. And so I'm just saying, to pay for the costs that we're going through, we don't have the cash now because we loaned it to somebody.
Yes, sir.
rather
Mr.
than-
Mayor, I'd acknowledge that, yes.
So, okay, thank you. Councilor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to get back on track with this. We're accepting this study, and totally, this study is exactly what we've said. Mr. Nebb has his two crystal balls. This is an educated crystal ball, but it's still a crystal ball. We're guessing. I would love for Mr. Yankee, but I'm not going to put him on that spot, to guarantee that these are all right, that this is exactly where the money is going to be. There's no way of doing this. This is an educated crystal ball, and lots of things can change. We're voting to accept this study and to use it as a tool. That's all we are. We've gone into a lot of other things and a lot of, I would say, mudslinging that we don't need to right now. We're voting on this to just actually accept it as a tool that we're going to use. I yield.
Okay, are there any further comments? Okay, we're on the motion of Councilman Corn and seconded by Councilman Perry to approve the new
To accept.
accept the new generation strategies and solutions solid waste cost of service study. All those in All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, by a vote of 10 or, well, 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative, this study has been approved. Item 29, to approve the amendment to three advertising agreement, guess that's the name of them, to the three advertising agreement for an additional $100,000 to contract for a total of $335,000 in fiscal year '23, with an additional $100,000 dedicated to and from the Air Service Marketing Grant Agreement, as well as approve the purchase order for this item. Councilman Corn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If this $100,000, well, I'll move to amend the three advertising agreement for an additional $100,000 for a contract total of $335,000 for FY '23. The additional $100,000 is going to be deducted. Excuse me, I wasn't even in the discussion a minute ago, and I can't talk. But for Air Services Marketing, it's a grant. We get reimbursed a good portion of this, and with that, Mr. Mayor, if I get a second, then I'd like to yield to Ms. Jennings.
Have a second. Councilman Perry.
Well, good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. You kind of wrapped up my whole presentation right there. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background, the city has a marketing and advertising contract with 3 advertising for all of our tourism-related initiatives, out-of-state marketing, or local marketing that attracts attracts visitors to come to our city. This action item is to amend that contract to include the additional $100,000 of the grant funding. This contract with 3 advertising was awarded with our RFP in 2020. The Roswell Air Center received the NMDOT Air Service Marketing Assistant Grant in the amount of $200,000. The grant requires 50% from the state and 50% from the city, match on allowable costs for marketing and promotion. And to expend the full amount, the city would match allowable expenses up to $200,000 for a total marketing program of $400,000 between this fiscal year and next fiscal year. For fiscal year '23, we're looking at allocating that additional $100,000. You can see here the grant funds towards Fly Roswell marketing would leave the grant balance at $150,000 for fiscal year '24. Finance Committee approved it on October 6th, 4-0. You can see the allocation outline on how the grant would be spent after speaking with Mr. Fuentes to determine some additional initiatives that maybe Fly Roswell would need and the Air Center staff. So tonight, I ask you to approve the amendment to the 3 advertising contract from $235,000 to $335,000, with the additional $100,000 to be used specifically for Fly Roswell marketing assistance and grant match funding. And I will stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Council Lady Best.
Since we've kind of flown all over the world today in our little room, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Not gonna sing to her.
Happy
you don't have to
birthday
sing.
to you. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, my goodness.
Happy birthday, Miss Juanita.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you. Wah, wah,
I'm turning
wah,
red.
wah.
Thank you very much. Y'all are very sweet.
Okay. Now, is there any further, seeing no further discussion? I move we have a motion to approve the amendment to 3 advertising in the amount of $335,000, including the additional funds of $100,000 dedicated for marketing services. It was made by Councilman Corn, seconded by Councilman Perry. All those in favor signify by voting yes.
Aye.
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 And anybody opposed? none opposed, so by a vote of 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative, it is passed.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have to approve my recommendation for Keep Roswell Beautiful as follows, that Councilman Perry, if you would
Mr.
make
Mayor,
that motion.
I make a motion that the council confirms your recommendation to the Keep Roswell Beautiful Board for position 5, Melissa Urias.
Have a second by Councilman Foster. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the recommendation for Miss Melissa Urias, signify by vote in the affirmative, by
Yeah.
voice vote. Well, everybody's voted here anyway. All those aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None opposed, so by vote of 9 in the affirmative, none in the negative, it's passed. We have, I also recommended, item 31 is the recommendation I had for commissioning on aging. If we asked, our city council liaison will be Councilman Perry. If you don't have a conflict of interest.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you're trying to say that I belong with the aged, or I don't know what you're saying. Before we get into that, Mr. Mayor, I apologize with 32 here, the closed session. Our city attorney, Mr. Intima, approached me earlier today and said that the information we were to receive during that time, there's been a conflict of someone not being able to be here to help to present. Would that be the correct way of saying that? If you just explain so that we don't.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, our council is under the weather, and this Monday we have scheduled a call to discuss some items that would probably be better discussed on Monday and then told to you, as opposed to just having them come twice and be sick.
Sorry for the confusion. I should have dropped that from the agenda, but it doesn't look like we can do that tonight. I'm sorry. With the number 31, I abstain from that, Mr. Mayor, so whoever wants to make them, and if you want to not vote for me and we put Councilor Corn in, that's fine too, whatever you'd like to do.
I ain't volunteering for it.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve Mayor Jenny's recommendation on the for the Commission of Aging to put Jason Perry as the City Council liaison.
Second.
Have a motion by Council Lady Halverson, the second by Council Hildebrand.
Mr. Chairman,
Well, I didn't know
I'm
he
just
said it.
curious if Councilor Perry's going to vote no on this item.
I shall abstain.
He abstained. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councilman Perry, it was unanimous, 8 by the vote of 8 in affirmative and 1 abstention. You have won. Okay. Okay, we have, item 32 has been removed. Department reports. Anybody want to make a department report? Okay, none of department. Any reports from boards and commissions? Seeing none, public participation. Nobody signed up. Future agenda items. On the future agenda items, please put on there, we'll have a report from the Airport Advisory Committee at the next 3 or 4 meetings. That was, I think, was requested. Mr. Nebb,
Yes,
would you like
sir.
to?
Mayor, City Council,
Announcements.
thank you for your help tonight. The only item that I wanted to bring up was, of course, with the Air Center. We've talked a lot about the Air Center tonight, so I'll keep it going a little bit farther. As everybody is well aware, our number 1 and number 2 positions at the Air Center resigned as of last week. We are in the process of updating the job descriptions, and we will be posting those very shortly in order to seek applications for those open positions.
When that comes about, because of the interest and the importance of the Air Center, I will be asking for some representation from the governing body to sit on the interview committees with that, as long as we walk through this. And we've done this for other department head positions, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware that we will be coming forward for seeking people in order to help interview with that as we walk through this process. I know we have some tentative plans talking about different, possibly firms running the center. The joint powers may impact this as well too. I'm not able to wait too long for this. We do have a tentative local interim manager possibility. We are just waiting to find out for sure that that is a go, and then we will make some additional adjustments. But I will tell you, the crew that we have out there are taking care of their business. We just, Mr. Yatima and myself, we will keep our hands on it as well too for our pieces of this to make sure that the Air Center is successful through these transitions. So with that, I will leave you for that. Have a great evening, and thank you for tonight.
Is there any further business to come before us? Well, I would like to thank the staff and everybody that's here. Thank you very much for being here. And if you want to tell Amalia we missed her, you can, or if you want to tell her we didn't miss her, that's up to you two. Stir the pot. All right, if there's nothing else, thank you all very much. The council's adjourned. Here are your pens. Aren't these? Ed, aren't these yours? No. I don't know, they're not mine either. Bye.